Chapter 837. The immortal corpse had been an ancient, true, immortal expert when he was alive and a master of star. His status was high, and his strength was terrifying, even though it was only his consciousness that had awakened before his death. The words of temptation that came out of his mouth naturally contained a special power that could bewitch one's mind. This power was silent and directly affected the depths of a cultivator's consciousness, causing one to be involuntarily immersed in it. It had a great influence on him, and in terms of temptation, it was many times stronger than that of Fairy Hume, the palace master of the closed moon immortal palace. Therefore, Ziyue could not help but be tempted at that moment, and greed rose in his heart. Fortunately, at the crucial moment, his golden primordial spirit glowed faintly. His perfect and transparent soul had a strong resistance to this kind of temptation, and he woke up in time. Otherwise, once he really aroused greed in his heart and aroused the thought of seizing that inheritance treasure and obtaining the secrets of that legendary treasure, then he would surely have the thought of letting go of this immortal corpse. At this critical moment, when he wanted to subdue his killing intent and allow his mental cultivation to rise to a higher level, it could be said that there would be no end to his troubles in the future. Not only would his murderous heart be covered in dust, his mental cultivation would also deteriorate, and all his previous efforts would be in vain. If he wanted to comprehend and subdue his murderous heart again, the difficulty would be many times greater than before. Fortunately, Ziyue woke up in time and struck out several 9 lightning, god-destroying seals in succession. Chi! 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 It turned into a terrifying, destructive force of the thunder god, destroying the will of the immortal corpse. No. Following a furious roar, the immortal corpse that had been emitting a strong mental energy fluctuation completely fell silent. The immortal corpse was dead. Huff huff, this immortal corpse's strength is indeed extremely strong. Not only are his attacks strong enough to surpass the level of the Supreme Realm, even his speed is not inferior to mine. If it wasn't for the fact that his soul and will were far weaker than mine, it would be hard to predict who would win. Ziyue looked at the immobile immortal corpse and could not help but secretly sigh in relief. Of course, he would not let his guard down completely because of this. He then looked at his attribute panel. The death of the immortal corpse would naturally give birth to spiritual energy. In his opinion, as long as the spiritual energy increased, it would naturally mean that the immortal corpse had died. Then he was stunned. How is this possible? 2 strands. On his status panel, there were actually 2 additional spirit energy increases. One of them was relatively small, with only a little over 50 million points. It was only slightly more than an average mid-stage primordial spirit realm cultivator. It was comparable to the amount of spiritual energy that a late-stage primordial spirit realm cultivator would gain after his death. However, the other one was extremely large, reaching a total of 3 billion, an increase of 3 billion units of soul power, and it's just 1. Normally, when a Lemeter dies, the increase in soul power is between 9,000 and 100 million units. That means that only a Lemeter who is in the middle or late stage of the Sever Divinity stage can achieve 3 billion units of soul power. Muttering in his heart, Ziyue couldn't help but exclaim in shock. Could it be that a powerhouse at the late stage of the spirit severing stage just happened to fall at this time, and not far from me? Or, Ziyue muttered, and then couldn't help but look at the immortal corpse. He could not help but have a guess in his heart. Combined with the scene during the battle, the more he thought about it, the more he felt that his guess was very likely to be the truth. Could it be that the true body of this immortal corpse did not actually fall in the ancient battle 10,000 years ago? It was only because the injuries were too severe that the primordial spirit was almost destroyed and dissipated, which created the illusion that it had already fallen. The true soul of the other party had actually been hidden in the endless depths of the immortal corpse, recuperating and waiting for an opportunity to recover and be resurrected. It was also because of this that the other party's corpse was found by another perfected immortal expert, who set up a corpse-nurturing array in this dragon vein and refined it into an immortal corpse. After 10,000 years of refinement, the immortal corpse gave birth to a new soul and will. Therefore, after I destroyed the other party's soul and will, there were 2 full waves of spiritual energy increase, and one of the waves of spiritual energy increase was extremely rich. Ziyue's eyes flickered, and he couldn't help but be shocked by his own guess. In fact, experts at the spirit-severing stage, especially experts at the late stage of the spirit-severing stage like the Lord of Nine Songs Star and the Evil King of Nine Songs, did indeed have the possibility of separating a primordial spirit particle and being reborn. The spirit-severing stage, wasn't it separating the will of the primordial spirit? All of this is really frightening to think about. However, this is not necessarily a bad thing for me. After accidentally killing a late-stage spirit-severing stage expert, Ziyue was also surprised, but he couldn't help but feel a little proud in his heart. A late-stage spirit-severing stage expert. If he was at his peak, he could probably crush him to death with a casual point. In the end, because of this accident, he was killed by him. Most importantly, after the other party died, the amount of spiritual energy that he received was too much. It was the most he had gained since he started cultivating. It really made him more excited than eating an immortal fruit. After all, no matter what, he was an existence who had gone against the odds and killed a late-stage spirit-severing stage perfected immortal. Even if he said it out loud, no one would believe it. As for the consequences, Ziyue wasn't afraid at all. From a moment he decided to step into the land of the fallen immortal and break the corpse-nurturing formation, he knew what he was about to face. Immortal corpse? Spirit-severing stage expert? They were all among the opponents he had expected. For this, he had also made all the necessary preparations. At this moment, he really encountered the immortal corpse and killed it, especially when he took the opportunity to kill the main soul of the immortal corpse and the ancient perfected immortal expert. The impact on Ziyue was incomparably strong, causing him to involuntarily feel a surge of emotions in his heart. So what if it's a perfected immortal expert? If it's dead, it's dead. To me, there's no one in the world that I can't kill. His heroism reached the clouds, and a strong sense of control was born from the bottom of his heart. His mental cultivation also soared, and at this moment his eyes were extremely clear. As he looked around, he felt that all things were growing and the world was beautiful. The countless doubts that had plagued his mind, the countless mysteries of heaven and earth that were still difficult to comprehend, the power of the Tao laws that were constantly floating and circulating between heaven and earth, were like looking at flowers in a fog, unable to be seen clearly, and the little creations everywhere were incomparably clear in his eyes at this moment. My mental cultivation has broken through. I've reached the realm of the enlightened sword heart, and all things are no longer stagnant. Naturally, I've also completely subdued the originally unpredictable killing intent. Ziyue originally thought that he would be incomparably overjoyed and reveal a moved smile. However, at this moment, he seemed incomparably calm, as if everything had always been like this and should be like this. And it was also the moment his mental cultivation broke through and he completely subdued the killing intent. The heaven-breaking Tao technique that had troubled him for a long time, and he couldn't completely comprehend and create it, also quickly took shape at this moment. The heaven-breaking Tao technique has also been truly created. This is a secret technique that belongs to me alone, and it completely combines my own unique advantages. It combines my physical body, Yuanli soul, primordial spirit, and many other powers perfectly. In one attack, not only does it contain the power of blood chi, but it also contains the power of material attacks and primordial spirit attacks. Furthermore, the various powers complemented each other perfectly. Once it's unleashed, even if the opponent's strength is extraordinary and his defensive methods are shocking, it'll be difficult for him to defend against the killing power of the primordial spirit attack, and it'll definitely be difficult for him to defend against the impact of the blood chi attack. Not to mention, the combination of the 3 powers and the regeneration of creation almost surpasses the limits of what primordial spirit cultivators can control. Ziyue's heart trembled, and he was completely immersed in the new heaven-breaking Tao technique that he had created. In the end, he was a little moved and he was amazed. Perfect. Too perfect. At least with Ziyue's current strength. He estimated that it would be extremely difficult for him to create another secret technique like this. This heaven-breaking Tao technique combines the three powers into one. It's like the manifestation of Tao laws and the incarnation of the great Tao. It's perfect and flawless. In that case, I shall name it the Great Tao Coalescence Technique. Bai Ziyue immediately came up with a name for the Tao art he had invented. The Great Tao Coalescence Technique was a special kind of power augmentation technique. It could be used to attack with swordsmanship, such as the Heart Sword technique. It could also be used with any attack techniques, such as the Heavenly Staff technique, the Nine Thunder God-Destroying technique, the Primordial Magnet Divine Light, the Nine Extinction Godly Sword, and so on. It was impossible to defend against, and its power was boundless. Since this heaven-breaking Tao technique, the Great Tao Coalescence Technique, has been created. In that case, I want to see if my attack has really broken through the suppression of heaven and earth and the seal of the Great Tao. I want to see if I can really unleash an attack that surpasses the limits of the primordial spirit realm. Ziyue had been looking forward to this for a long time. When he had just broken through to the initial stage of the primordial soul realm, he had already felt a kind of suppression and restraint. Under the influence of heaven and earth, he could not fully unleash his power. At most, he could only unleash an attack at the level of the extreme realm. In the beginning, it was still fine. When he was in the initial stage of the primordial soul realm, his attack techniques were actually just barely at the level of the extreme realm. Although this suppression and restraint existed, it was not obvious. However, when he broke through to the intermediate stage of the primordial soul realm, after his breakthrough, his power soared, but he could only unleash an attack at the level of the extreme realm. This made him extremely uncomfortable. After going through so much and spending so much time and effort, he had finally integrated himself and created a heaven-breaking Tao technique that could surpass the level of the extreme realm. Naturally, he wanted to give it a try. The Great Tao Coalescence Technique was a secret technique that he had created himself. Naturally, he did not need to go through the initial stages of cultivation to be able to use it skillfully. At this moment, he activated the Great Tao Coalescence Technique. The aura in his body suddenly surged. His blood, qi, origin energy, and soul all surged. Under the activation of this special technique, the three forces combined and turned into a special white aura that resembled liquid mercury. Then, with a thought, he poured all of this special aura into the flying sword. Immediately after, he activated the Heart Sword technique and used the mystery of the Heart Sword technique to unleash this attack. Qi. Fast. 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 Too fast. The flying sword was like silver, but it disappeared in the blink of an eye. As if there was no gap in time, it appeared in the void 80,000 feet away and pierced deeply. Poof! It was as if a golden needle had pierced a balloon. A terrifying power exploded out, causing the surrounding space to rapidly collapse and spread out. Buzz, buzz, buzz. A series of extremely complex and mysterious talismans suddenly rose from the place where the flying sword landed, and they were immediately activated to the extreme. However, it was useless. Ziyue's attack directly shattered the array formation and turned it into nothingness. This attack is so strong. It's several times stronger than any of my previous attacks, reaching an unimaginable level. Most importantly, this attack made me feel incomparably refreshed and carefree. The suppression and seal that had been surrounding me and shrouding me in attacks has finally been completely shattered. This attack has surpassed the level of the limiter. It has truly reached a new, higher level. Ziyue took a deep breath. His blood and soul were excited, and he felt incomparably happy. The Pinnacle Realm is a realm that only the pinnacle experts of the Star Boundary can reach. In the entire star boundary, there are only 11 or 12 of them. Perhaps there are some hidden ones, but there are definitely not many. And among these 11 or 12 pinnacle experts, only 2 have broken through the suppression of heaven and earth and the seal of the great Tao, and can unleash an attack that surpasses the pinnacle realm. These 2 people are the 9-star Tao Palace's Sun Badong and the Great Tao Business Alliance's Li Fatian. They are also recognized as the 2 strongest supreme experts in the world. But now, there will be one more person in the star boundary who can break through the suppression of heaven and earth and the seal of the great Tao, and that is myself. Ziyue's thoughts spun, and he could not help but feel a sense of comparison. He was not sure if his offensive methods and strength were stronger than Sun Badong and Li Fatian's. After all, he had not really seen these 2 people in action, so it was naturally difficult to find out. However, when he unleashed this attack, he actually vaguely understood that his current strength was absolutely beyond imagination. He did not fear ordinary early-stage spirit-severing experts at all, at least with his current strength and methods. If he fought with the immortal corpse again, he would not need to expend much effort to suppress the other party and completely obliterate the other party's soul and will. Ziyue was full of confidence. Not to mention, the great Tao convergence technique he used at this moment was only at the beginner stage. It only had the effect of integrating power, subduing Tao laws, and breaking through the shackles of the pinnacle realm. What was unleashed was actually the original power of the flying sword. If he could raise the Great Path convergence technique to perfection, Ziyue reckoned that his strength would definitely soar again and become even more powerful. It just so happens that my current spiritual power is also very sufficient. The more than 600 million spiritual power from before and the 150 million spiritual power this time have directly caused my spiritual power to soar to 2 billion spiritual power. Ziyue glanced at the attribute panel, and a trace of anticipation appeared on his face. Chapter 838. 2 billion points of spiritual energy was not a small amount. Even if it was a drop in the bucket compared to his original estimate of 20 billion points of spiritual energy, it was enough to increase his strength by a large margin. Now, including the Great Path Coalescence Technique, I have a total of 3 secret techniques that require the help of spiritual energy. They are the Origin Technique, the Great Yuan Spirit Scripture, the Physical Secret Technique, the Heaven Staff Technique, and the Great Path Coalescence Technique. The Great Yuan Spirit Scripture will increase my immortal technique realm. My cultivation is now at the intermediate primordial spirit realm. Only by increasing it to the advanced primordial spirit realm can my strength be considered to have improved greatly. However, the amount of spiritual energy needed to increase from the intermediate primordial spirit realm to the advanced primordial spirit realm is too much. 4 billion points of spiritual energy is not enough. Even if I increase my immortal technique realm to the advanced primordial spirit realm, my strength will advance to an unimaginable level. Even if I did not create the Great Path Coalescence Technique, I can still rely on the immense and terrifying strength of the advanced primordial spirit realm to break through the suppression of heaven and earth and the seal of the Great Path. Ziyue could not help but shake his head as he thought about it. In fact, he had already guessed that when his strength reached a certain level, it would be difficult for heaven and earth to completely suppress him and would be shattered by him. In his opinion, the advanced primordial spirit realm was already at a level where he could break through the suppression of heaven and earth. Even if his state of mind was slightly weaker and his understanding of the laws of heaven and earth was slightly weaker, his immense strength would be enough to make up for it. Unfortunately, 4 billion points of spiritual energy was too much for him. It was not an amount that could be gathered in a short period of time. Therefore, he did not set this as a goal from the beginning. Fortunately, everything went smoothly. He managed to subdue his murderous intent as he wished, and his state of mind improved greatly. This allowed him to successfully create the heaven-breaking Tao technique, and he also used it to truly break through the suppression of heaven and earth and the seal of the Great Path. As for the Heaven Staff technique, This Heaven Staff technique is definitely a supreme, secret technique created by an expert of the immortal path above the spirit-severing stage. Just the 9 staff strikes of the Heaven Shocking Staff technique was already comparable to a supreme Taoist technique. It allowed me to unleash the power of the Lamita realm. The Heaven Shocking 3 staff strikes and the Heaven Shocking single staff strike were even stronger and more powerful. However, even though the startling Heaven Staff technique was powerful, it was still incomplete. If I want to improve it, I have to complete the Heaven Startling 3 strikes. Just completing the Heaven Startling 3 strikes requires 28 billion points of spiritual energy. If I want to upgrade it to perfection, I'll need another 28 billion points. Adding it all up, I'll need 56 billion points. I'm still a long way off. Ziyue's gaze landed on the Heaven-Shocking 3 rod strikes on his stats window. He quickly shook his head and said softly, "As expected, the increase in my abilities still depends on this newly created Great Tao Convergence technique. Besides, this Heaven Breaker Taoist technique is a mystic technique that can completely fuse my strength into one. Once it reaches perfection, the increase in my strength will be substantial." Of course, the most important thing was that Ziyue had discovered that the amount of spiritual energy required to upgrade the Great Path Convergence technique didn't exceed his limits. By consuming 9 billion points of soul energy, the Heaven Breaker Taoist technique of Great Tao Convergence can be upgraded from novice to perfection. 9 billion points of soul energy, that's quite a lot. But to me, as long as it can increase my abilities, so what if it's more? Not to mention, this Great Path Convergence technique is a mystic technique that I created based on my own situation. It's a mystic technique that completely suits me and can unleash my abilities to the greatest extent. Once it's upgraded to perfection, it'll definitely increase my abilities to the extreme. Although the consumption of 9 billion points of soul energy made Ziyue a little reluctant, he also understood that it was all worth it. In the immortal spell world, only strength could reign supreme. Not to mention, the area he was in right now wasn't considered safe. Although the immortal corpse had been dealt with, there was still no trace of the legendary perfected immortal powerhouse. Once he encountered him, he wouldn't be safe with his current abilities. Upgrade. Thinking of this, Ziyue didn't hesitate and immediately chose to upgrade. In an instant, a vast amount of cultivation experience, insights, and understanding regarding the Great Path Convergence technique rapidly poured into his mind. He seemed to have gone through tens of thousands of years of tireless cultivation to raise this heaven-breaking Taoist technique to the perfected realm. The Great Path Convergence technique has been perfected. As expected, after perfection, with the help of the Great Path Convergence technique, the power of the 3 forces combined changed again. Not only did it become more solid and tyrannical, even the structure of the power was much more compact, as if it had a life of its own. It could evolve and change, causing the birth of dead wood, or turn into a light of destruction, wantonly destroying all existence. And this mystic technique really suits me very well. Under perfection, it actually led to a small improvement in my immortal spell realm. The circulation of my primordial spirit, chi, and blood is also a little faster than before. As for the immortal spell realm, if calculated in terms of soul energy consumption, it saved me at least 100 million points of soul energy consumption. Ziyue couldn't help but be overjoyed. This kind of situation was unprecedented in the past. 100 million points of soul energy wasn't much for Ziyue now, but it definitely wasn't little either. As for my abilities, the improvement is even greater. Although I don't know exactly what level I'm at, because there's no comparison, I estimate that I'm at least 2 levels stronger than before. Ziyue thought to himself. Then, he looked at the remaining great formations in the land of the fallen immortals. Although the immortal corpse had been killed by him, he naturally couldn't let the corpse-nurturing ground continue to exist and affect the recovery of the dragon vein. With a thought, the Great Path Convergence technique was used. The North Sea flying sword immediately turned into a ray of flowing light and rushed out. At the same time, Zue also used the primordial magnetic divine light, the nine extinction divine sword, and then the heaven-startling staff technique. They respectively bombarded the remaining great formations. Boom, boom, boom. Heaven and earth exploded. Endless spiritual light rose, and then, after recovering to the extreme, collapsed instantly, turning into ruins and dust. These supreme, killing formations that were originally incomparably powerful and could kill peak primordial spirit realm cultivators. Even supreme realm cultivators had to be careful when facing them. Otherwise, there was a risk of death. But now, they were all turned into ruins and completely destroyed. Soon, the 9 great formations were all destroyed by him. The corpse-nurturing ground formation that originally sat on the dragon vein was also destroyed and removed by him. Suddenly, endless and rich immortal evil chi spread out in all directions like seawater. Gradually, strands of dragon court ancestral chi began to spread out from the depths of the ground. This dragon court ancestral chi contained endless vitality. It was like the embodiment of the great path, constantly nourishing the surrounding heaven and earth and repairing the earth vein that had been contaminated by the corpse-nurturing ground formation for thousands of years. It's a pity that although the corpse-nurturing ground formation has been destroyed, the impact it caused can't be eliminated in a short time. If it develops normally, it will take at least 100 years to clean up the contamination. The dragon vein will really start to nourish the earth veins all over the ancient barren region and repair the damage of the original dragon vein and earth vein. It will take at least 100 years. Zue sighed in his heart. There was nothing he could do in a short time. Although he was powerful, it was impossible for him to revive the dragon vein in a short time. Either he cut off the dragon veins from other realms and planted them in the dragon veins of the ancient desolate region, which would allow him to recover quickly, or he would spend hundreds of years and thousands of years of hard work to sort out the earth energy of the underground spirit veins bit by bit. Regardless of which method he chose, Zue was not willing to make the decision easily. However, even with such a commotion, no one has come. It seems that the legendary spirit severing stage cultivator is not here. Zue scanned the surrounding situation and frowned slightly. However, he could not help but secretly heave a sigh of relief. If possible, he naturally did not want to encounter an unfamiliar powerful cultivator. Not to mention that it was very likely that the other party was a true immortal who had participated in the earth-shattering battle 10,000 years ago. Then, Zue began to tidy up the spoils of war. Because of the violent destruction of the formation, many of the formation bases had been destroyed. Only some of the formation eyes were very sturdy and of high quality. Most of them were very intact, and their value was naturally very high. The weakest one was a supreme-grade primordial spirit treasure. Among them, there were even a few special treasures like the fire essence crystals, whose value was above that of supreme-grade primordial spirit treasures. However, what really moved Zue was the formation eyes of the corpse land formation formed by the combination of the 9 formations. This was an ancient war chest set. On the war chest set, there was still a pool of fresh blood floating on it. It was as if it had just dripped onto the war flag. And as the war flag fluttered, a frighteningly strong and terrifying immortal chi could not help but spread out from it. This immortal chi was all attached to the war flag. As the war flag fluttered slightly, it pressed down on the void in the earth, causing a trembling sound. Demonic treasure, another demonic treasure. Moreover, the grade of this demonic treasure is at least middle grade. It might even be a high-grade demonic treasure. Zue's expression changed as he carefully got closer. The moment he grabbed the war banner, the battle banner in his hand changed. Roar! A deafening roar sounded. Then, Zue sensed that in the vast starry sky, countless cultivators were madly fighting, causing the stars to shatter and the starry sky to be dyed in blood. It was an extremely tragic scene, and this war flag had drunk the blood of countless experts. Then, in the hands of a foreign race expert, It was like a long spear as it fought fiercely with a giant beast. This battle caused the heavens to shatter and the earth to shatter. Then, as the foreign race expert let out a low roar, the war flag pierced through the giant beast. The endless blood of the star beast died, the war flag bright and glistening. After this battle, the war flag seemed to have undergone a special transformation. The drops of blood seemed to have given birth to a creation, condensing into a shocking blood chi. Just the aura was revealed, and it was vast for thousands of miles. Then, it turned into a ray of dim light and rushed out. Finally, it turned illusory and real and rushed directly towards Ziyue. However, Ziyue's soul was pure, and the primordial spirit that he had formed was the one and only golden primordial spirit in the world. It was naturally extremely strong against all kinds of infernal chi. When the infernal chi rushed into Ziyue's body, it was like a gentle breeze that did not affect Ziyue at all. In fact, when Ziyue's primordial spirit revolved, it actually refined the immortal chi that rushed towards him. It is indeed a high-grade demonic treasure, a top weapon that is comparable to a high-grade spiritual treasure. That immortal chi is only because my soul is special and I'm not afraid of it. If it was an ordinary primordial spirit cultivator, he would probably be washed away and controlled by the infernal chi and turned into a walking corpse. Once his strength is slightly weaker, he would be invaded by the infernal chi in a single move. His primordial spirit would be completely destroyed, and he would be turned into ashes and perish. Ziyue murmured. With a thought, he held the war flag tightly, and it did not dare to move. When he was still in the golden core stage, he was not afraid of being invaded by the demonic treasure's infernal chi. He could walk freely in the infernal chi. Now that his immortal techniques had improved, even if the demonic treasure in his hand was of a higher grade and the infernal chi that it carried was more terrifying, Ziyue was not afraid at all. When he was invaded by the infernal chi, it was as easy as a gentle breeze. Then his primordial spirit revolved, and he took the opportunity to put away the war flag that he had already subdued. The war flag was of a very high grade. Not only did it innately possess immortal chi, the fresh blood on it was also very extraordinary. Ziyue planned to refine this demonic treasure when he had the time and make it his own weapon. Even if it was not suitable for him, using the war flag as a staff and displaying shocking staff techniques would not be any weaker than using other immortal treasures. Not to mention, the staff shadow contained immortal chi. Any enemy who saw it would be much more cautious. Finally, it's this immortal corpse. The corpse of an ancient, true, immortal expert. If he was at his peak, he would probably not be any weaker than the expert who killed the giant beast in the image just now. His corpse also contains endless great Tao and the truths of heaven and earth. It will definitely be beneficial to my immortal techniques cultivation. I should take him away too. Perhaps he will be of some use. Ziyue's primordial spirit swept past and carefully probed the body of the immortal corpse. He could not penetrate deep into the corpse at all and could only examine its outer appearance. However, the immortal corpse's outer appearance was indignant, but it seemed to be formed by endless Tao laws, forming an extremely mysterious power that was extremely tough. It's no wonder that my powerful attack didn't cause much damage to it. Its physical defense is really invincible. Ziyue muttered and could not help but compare it with his own physical body. Even if the cultivation system was different, it was a fact that he was inferior to the immortal corpse in terms of pure power usage. He naturally wanted to explore and learn. Soon, he made some discoveries. From a structure of some Tao laws, he found that when the spirit and flesh were combined, there would be a special spiritual power effect that was extremely effective in increasing the physical strength of a cultivator. Involuntarily, Ziyue's primordial spirit power flowed and sketched according to this unique Tao law structure. Indeed, he felt a special numbness in his flesh and blood. It was as if he had obtained a special kind of training and strengthening in the depths of his physical particles. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths. This change was very subtle, but it was real. Most importantly, it required a lot of energy to maintain the sketching. Therefore, Ziyue only maintained it for a while before stopping. Chapter 839. Ziyue estimated that if he wanted to reach the level of invincible physical body like the immortal corpse, he would need at least hundreds or thousands of years of hard work. It would be better to cultivate the cultivation method he had created, the Grand Primordial Spirit Scripture. After all, the Grand Primordial Spirit Scripture was the cultivation method he had created that was most suitable for him. Cultivating the spirit, flesh, and primordial spirit together complemented each other. Once his immortal technique realm improved, his physical strength would naturally improve as well, which would be more suitable for him. Of course, the Tao law contained in the immortal corpse was indeed extremely profound. It was a complete manifestation of the Tao law, which would be of great help to him. Next, he would naturally spend some time observing and cultivating, using this opportunity to improve his strength and foundation. But now is not the time. Now that the corpse-nurturing formation in the land of the fallen immortals has been destroyed by me, the immortal evil chi that shrouded the land will naturally dissipate over time and be replaced by the ancestral chi of the dragon court gushing out from the underground dragon vein. Perhaps it won't take long for the environment of this land to change from the original land of death to a spiritual land, an immortal land, or even a holy land. In this way, all my efforts will not be in vain. Ziyue felt an inexplicable surge of emotions and a sense of accomplishment. He did not need others to thank him. He came to the land of the fallen immortals because he thought that, as the first person in the world to walk out of the ancient barren domain, he should and must do something for the ancient barren domain. Now that he had finally achieved something, he naturally felt at ease. And for an immortal technique cultivator, peace of mind was even rarer. It made his state of mind and cultivation slowly improve, and his primordial spirit became clearer and brighter, untainted by anything. Next, Ziyue pondered for a moment. I'm not far from the ancient barren domain now. Why don't I go there and see how the ancient barren domain has changed? It had been 7 or 8 years since he came out of the ancient barren domain. He missed it and wanted to see the mountains and rivers, the scenery, the familiar people. Even though the mountains and rivers were not as magnificent as the Firmament territory, it was his hometown and the place where he was born. Even though he had left, he still couldn't bear to part with his loved ones. With this thought in mind, Ziyue no longer hesitated. With his heart set on returning home, his figure flashed as he directly used the 1,000 miles in a breath technique. In an instant, his figure was like a stream of light as he rushed into the distance. Sizzle. Right at this moment, a spatial rift suddenly erupted in front of Ziyue, and it was like an enormous net that practically enveloped a large expanse of the heavens and the earth. Oomph. Ziyue's expression did not change. At the same time, when the space crack exploded, a flying sword had already rushed out in front of him. It was like a flowing light directly hitting the shocking giant net. Boom! Heaven and earth fell silent. This incomparably stable space that had existed for countless years in this world. As for the spatial rift that stretched across the sky like a giant net, it suddenly shattered and turned into mesons of nothingness. It also revealed a pitch-black space that contained chaotic and terrifying spatial turbulence. The spatial crack was completely shattered. Even the space in the land of the fallen immortals, which was several times more stable than the outside world, was shattered. Naturally, the spatial crack no longer existed. This space began to reorganize under the power of heaven and earth, and it began to recover bit by bit. However, Ziyue's power was too strong. Even with the help of the power of heaven and earth, it took almost a month for the space to regain its stability. At this time, Ziyue had already turned into a stream of light and disappeared. I finally arrived at the ancient barren region. Ziyue looked into the distance at the mountains and rivers. Even though the surrounding spiritual chi of heaven and earth was extremely thin for him at this moment, if he inhaled and exhaled with all his might, he would probably be able to absorb all the spiritual chi within a range of 10,000 miles in a breath. However, he felt an inexplicable sense of closeness, as if he had returned home with happiness. However, Ziwe soon saw the sky curtain that enveloped the entire ancient barren region. In fact, this sky curtain was known to all the major sects in the ancient barren region. When he had walked out of the ancient barren region and stepped into the 100,000 Great Mountain, he had already sensed the existence of this sky curtain that isolated heaven and earth. This sky curtain that isolated heaven and earth could only be exited and not entered. The more powerful one was, the stronger the suppression when entering and exiting the sky curtain. Back then, he had guessed that this sky curtain must have been set up by some peerless almighty expert. As for what the specific plan was, he had no way of guessing. This time, when he entered the ancient barren region, he also had the idea of understanding this great array in detail. After all, his current array Tao strength was not weak. The ancient barren region was his hometown, so he naturally did not want to see anyone do something that would be detrimental to the ancient barren region. At this moment, looking at this great array, Ziwe's expression changed, and a sense of horror arose in his heart. A 6th grade great array. This was already the second 6th grade great array that he had encountered. Another thing worth mentioning was that this great array was much more advanced than the corpse-nurturing great array in the ancient barren battlefield. It was an advanced 6th grade great array. As he approached and sensed it, even Ziwe felt a faint sense of threat in his heart. The power of this great array is so strong, not to mention primordial soul realm cultivators. Even extreme realm cultivators, and even mighty immortal experts of the spirit-severing realm and above would not dare to touch it at all. This is because once they touch it and enter, they will trigger a backlash from the great array and explode with a terrifying attack. Ziwe could not help but be amazed. The deeper one went in the array Tao, the more one could feel the power and exquisiteness of this great array, as well as its perfect harmony with heaven and earth. This was a higher-level use of array Tao, and any cultivator who wanted to achieve something in the array Tao would feel a sense of infatuation when they saw it. Ziwe also felt the beauty of this great array, but he was actually more analyzing the function of this great array and whether it would cause any harm to the ancient barren region. This great array is a type of protective array Tao. It only protects the outside and not the inside. If outside cultivators want to enter, once they are too strong, they will be attacked by the great array Tao. On the contrary, the weaker the cultivator, the less the threat they will face. And this great array Tao does not have any restrictions on the people of the ancient barren region within the great array Tao. They can enter and leave freely. Ziwe secretly heaved a sigh of relief, and then a serious expression appeared on his face. If he wanted to enter the ancient barren region, he would also have to pass through this great array Tao. And most importantly, he wanted to know who the person who set up this great array Tao was. Was it the person who set up the great array Tao in the land of the fallen immortals in the ancient barren battlefield? Or was it someone else? A grade 6 array master was probably not common outside the astral realm. 10,000 years ago, when the 7 perfected immortal experts descended, the possibility of there being 2 grade 6 array masters was also very small. And if the person who set up this great array Tao was the same person who set up the great array Tao in the land of the fallen immortals, then there would be no lack of a battle between them. Even though Ziwe was now much stronger than before and had completely broken through the seal of heaven and earth and the suppression of the great Tao, he did not dare to be too confident. After all, the other party was a top existence who could dominate the world since ancient times. Even the weakest one was at the level of a star lord like the immortal corpse, or even stronger. However, since I'm already here, it's not my style to not give it a try. It's also good to see if this great array Tao is really as strong as I imagined. If that person is really an enemy and not a friend, even if I'm not strong enough, I'll still break his teeth. Ziwe thought to himself, and a trace of determination flashed across his eyes. The primordial spirit power in his body surged, and he used many techniques, including the Great Tao Coalescence technique and the True Dragon Armor technique. He even took out the superior grade Kunwu Golden Pagoda to raise its defensive power to the maximum. Then, he began to approach carefully. 10,000 meters, 1,000 meters, 100 meters, the closer he got, the more Ziyue felt the power of the Great Barrier that isolated heaven and earth. Nevertheless, when Bai Ziyue was 10 meters away from the formation, even though he still felt a faint sense of threat, the big formation did not really activate. Just like before, it still existed in the void and did not move at all. When the breeze blew, it did not obstruct it at all, as if it did not exist. Then he gritted his teeth and continued to approach. 5 meters, 4 meters, 3 meters outside Ziyue's body, the defensive light of the Kunwu Golden Pagoda and the True Dragon Armor technique had already come into contact with the Great Barrier, but he still did not feel any repulsive force. Then, naturally, Ziyue stepped in. Heaven and earth were calm and peaceful. Everything was the same as before. What's going on? I'm not being obstructed at all? Or is this great array, Tao, no longer working? Ziyue was a little puzzled. He did not think that he was a very special existence. Thinking of this, he seemed to have thought of something. With a thought, he stretched out his hand. A huge palm print suddenly formed in heaven and earth. The palm print extended along the Great Barrier and reached out from the ancient barren region, directly grabbing a mountain dozens of kilometers away. Roar! A furious roar rang out, and a black bear that was 80 feet long with a robust and tall body was grabbed by the palm. It slowly charged toward the sky. This was a great demon that had just broken through to the early Golden Core realm and was a demon king expert in the surrounding 800 kilometers. However, in Ziyue's hands, it was like a quail that could not move at all. In the end, it could only whimper and tremble. Bai Ziyue's strength was too strong. Each and every one of his movements contained great power. Not to mention that it had just advanced to the early Golden Core realm. Even a great demon in the early Primordial Soul realm would be powerless in Ziyue's hands. Then it saw the place where its palm had reached out and it was about to charge into. Its eyes, which had already been frightened, were immediately filled with panic, and it could not help but wail. However, Ziyue's expression did not change. He grabbed it and threw it into the Great Barrier. Buzz! The Great Barrier recovered, and a terrifying force gathered, instantly turning into a golden ray of light. Chi chi chi! The golden ray instantly pierced the huge black bear and its entire body. The huge bear also fell and slid to the ground, staining the ground red with blood. As expected, this formation is still working. But why did it only let me go? Ziyue was puzzled. It did not make sense to say that it was afraid of him because of his strength. He could feel the power of the entire Great Barrier. It was a place that even an expert in the separating divinity realm had to face with caution and did not dare to step into easily. Although he was confident that his strength was not weaker than an ordinary expert in the separating divinity realm, he was only in the middle primordial soul realm. Or is it because I was born in the ancient barren region? Ziyue guessed, but he did not know the reason. Then, he did not delve too deeply into it. With a move, he went deep into the ancient barren region. Along the way, he fully activated his divine sense. The people, objects, conversations, and even the thoughts of the people he passed by, all kinds of secret information gathered in his mind in the blink of an eye and were taken shape by him. Now, only 6 of the 7 major immortal cultivation sects are left. The Gu God sect is finally completely extinct. Now, the Chaiyang sect is the most powerful sect in the ancient barren region. Not only have a few people reached the God realm, but the sect master of the Chaiyang sect also broke through and reached the late God realm. He is the most powerful person in the world. Among the younger generation, there are a few extremely talented cultivators. Their strength is the best of the generation, and they are called the 7 sons of the Chaiyang sect. It is said that the strongest one has begun to accumulate strength to reach the God realm. The ancient barren region is not peaceful now. It is said that in the far west, there is a secret cave. That secret cave is connected to a mysterious place. Often, There are external demons stepping into the ancient barren region and wantonly destroying the surroundings. Now, all the major immortal cultivation sects have sent experts to guard that place. It is said that there are countless casualties. Among the rogue cultivators, there is a person who calls himself Saint Lord Jinfa. He claims to be the successor of a genuine immortal and is extremely powerful. It is said that he is only in the early stage of the Enlightenment realm, but he has suppressed 3 experts in the late stage of the Enlightenment realm. His strength can be said to be invincible in the same realm. He is almost as powerful as the invincible Kunlun Taoist a few years ago. Kunlun Taoist? Speaking of which, there's been no news about Kunlun Taoist for a long time. Some people say that he has died long ago. Others say that he has left the ancient barren region and stepped into the outer region. But no matter what, he is indeed the most talented expert in our ancient desolate region in the past tens of thousands of years. Through the conversations and information, Ziyue knew the situation in the ancient barren region like the back of his hand, but he knew almost half of it. The Chaoyang sect has become the #1 sect in the ancient barren region. However, the sect leader is only in the late stage of the god realm. He may be powerful in the ancient barren region, but in the firmament territory, he is too weak. I reckon that any expert from a small sect would be able to suppress it. Ziyue shook his head and sighed. Compared to the firmament territory, the number and strength of the experts in the ancient barren region were really too weak. Ziyue estimated that it would take at least 10,000 years, or even more than 10,000 years, to catch up. But the secret cave? Soon, Ziyue's face showed a trace of seriousness. Chapter 840. Secret Cave? It's connected to a mysterious place. Often, outer demons use this place to enter the ancient barren region. Could it be that this secret cave is also one of the connecting passages between the demon realm and the star realm? Ziyue's heart tightened, and he could not help but frown deeply. He had long known that when the great calamity of the star boundary descended, it would overlap with the devil world in a certain star dimension, creating a spatial tunnel. Cultivators could use the spatial tunnel to enter the devil world, and similarly, the otherworldly demons could use the spatial tunnel to enter the star boundary. In the firmament territory, the true law domain, the true demon domain, and other domains, there were such space passages. Among them, the true demon domain was the most eye-catching. It was said that there were a total of 2 space passages. Ziyue did not expect that there would also be one in the ancient barren region. However, what puzzled him was that the outer demons that entered the ancient barren region seemed to be much weaker than he had imagined. In the true demon domain, there were already outer demons in the middle and late gold core realm who entered the star realm. It was the same in the firmament territory and the true law domain. There were often outer demons in the gold core realm who broke through the defense barrier. However, in the ancient desolate region, the strongest expert was only at the late stage of the divine realm. How could they resist such a powerful extraterrestrial demon? Or was it that the secret cave had only appeared recently? However, it was said that this secret cave was discovered 10 years ago. It was 2 years earlier than the one in the true law domain. Ziyue could not help but feel a sense of urgency. He knew very well how terrifying the outer demons were. Tens of thousands of years ago, the ancient era's peak clans, the Dragon Clan and the Phoenix Clan, had all declined and perished because of this extraterrestrial demon. Countless sects had completely lost their legacies because of this, and various parts of the astral realm had suffered heavy losses because of this. What about the ancient desolate region? There were no experts at all. Any divine realm extraterrestrial demon at the peak of the divine realm could probably destroy the inheritance of the cultivators in the ancient desolate region and occupy a large area, let alone an extraterrestrial demon at the gold core realm. Thinking of this, he could not care less. In a flash, he went straight in the direction of the legendary secret cave. As for Saint Master Jinfa, and the successor of a true immortal, he didn't care at all. Even if his talent was truly unparalleled, he was still only at the aperture opening realm when compared to his past self. By the time he matured, it would probably be at least 100 years later. 100 years later, even Ziyue himself wasn't sure what level he would reach. The two of them were simply not on the same level. With a thought, Ziyue's body moved like a phantom, crossing tens of thousands of miles and arriving in a desolate area. This was the Greenwood Mountain Range, which was not far from the original Gugad sect. By Ziyue, could be considered to be revisiting an old place. His divine sense spread out in a grandiose manner. The scenery of the mountains, the maple trees, and the traces of cultivators in the area were all included in his divine sense, allowing him to understand everything clearly. Soon, Ziyue sensed the encampments of the various sects in the ancient desolate region and the mysterious secret cave. You're finally here. However, at this moment, a slightly old voice suddenly sounded in Ziyue's ears. This voice was flat and without the slightest fluctuation, and it even seemed to be slightly indifferent and light. But when it entered into by Ziyue's ears, it was like a thunderclap that exploded to the point his heart trembled while his expression turned grim. Who is it? He was bewildered. His divine sense swept past, but he didn't notice anything. However, he saw a slightly stooped, silver-haired old man 1,000 feet in front of him. He looked at Ziyue with a smile. His eyes were calm, like the old man next door, giving people an inexplicable sense of peace. However, Ziyue looked at the other party and only felt shocked. He was an expert at the spirit-severing realm, and above the middle and late stages of the spirit-severing realm. Even though he had long known that there were still experts at the spirit-severing realm in the astral realm, and that there would definitely be experts among the 7 ancient perfected immortal experts who survived, he still felt a huge impact in his heart when he really faced him. However, although he was shocked, he quickly calmed down and asked, "May I know Senior's name? What can I do for you?" Since the other party didn't attack immediately, he naturally wanted to test the other party's strength. If he really had a fight in the end, he naturally wouldn't wait for death. "You don't have to be nervous." The silver-haired old man smiled slightly. "I am Wu Songhai of the Heavenly Radiance Planet, and I call myself Immortal Songhai. 10,000 years ago, because of the supreme treasure, the primordial chaos Tao talisman, I came to your astral realm with 7 fellow cultivators. In the end, because of the treasure, we were blinded by it and a great battle broke out. Several fellow cultivators died because of this, and I was seriously injured and on the verge of death. In addition, that great battle angered the will of the great Tao of the astral realm, and heaven and earth sent down divine punishment, so I stayed here." Divine punishment? I wonder what divine punishment it is. And what is that primordial chaos Tao talisman? Ziyue raised his eyebrows and couldn't help but ask in surprise. This divine punishment is the punishment of the will of the great Tao. You can treat it as a different kind of heavenly tribulation, but it is countless times more powerful. Among them, just to seal the heavens and extinguish the spirit is enough to make us suffer. Under the effect of the seal the heavens and extinguish the spirit chi of heaven and earth in this astral realm, it is impossible for us to absorb the wandering spirit chi of heaven and earth in this astral realm. We can only use all kinds of real heavenly treasures and swallow them into our bodies to use those spirit chi of heaven and earth to display some of our skills. Not to mention, there is also the apocalyptic divine punishment attack that occurs once every 100 years. Although the apocalyptic divine punishment is not very powerful and is only equivalent to the ultimate level of your primordial soul realm, this is actually also the limit of the great Tao of the astral realm, and the strongest it can display is only this much power. However, after all, we have experienced the ancient battle, and most of us are seriously injured. It can be said that it is extremely difficult to accumulate strength. It is naturally very tiring to resist such an attack. Every time the apocalyptic divine punishment descends, it almost reduces our strength by half. It can be said that it is extremely depressing. As he spoke, Immortal Songhai could not help but reveal a trace of bitterness. These days were definitely not easy. After 10,000 years, more than 100 apocalyptic divine punishment attacks had caused him to suffer greatly. Fortunately, I am, after all, the best array formation master in the thousands of star regions around the heavenly radiant star, and naturally have some understanding of the great Tao of heaven and earth. Thus, I set up this 9 revolutions isolation formation that covers the entire ancient desolate region, blocking all external enemies and protecting the survival of the human race in the ancient desolate region. The will of heaven and earth sensed this and gradually released a trace of its restrictions, allowing me to slowly absorb the spirit chi of heaven and earth to recover. Now, after nearly 10,000 years, my strength has already recovered more than 70%. As for the Chaos Tao Talisman, it is a kind of natural treasure that was born in the chaos. It appears in the form of a talisman, but it can change into thousands of forms and become an existence of any shape. It is a kind of supreme treasure that surpasses spirit treasures. It also contains the secrets of Tao integration. Obtaining it can allow cultivators like us who have been stuck in the late stage of the spirit severing stage for countless years to take a step further and step into the legendary realm of Tao integration with heaven. Unfortunately, that supreme treasure has disappeared without a trace after the Great Battle. Even the strongest sovereign celestial demon, who had reached the peak of the spirit severing stage and was only one step away from Tao integration, could not find it. Fairy Songhai shook her head and sighed. Now that she thought about it, their search back then was a joke. I see. Ziyue nodded silently, but his heart was calm. Although the primordial chaos Tao talisman was extremely precious and was known as a supreme treasure, he knew his own limits. He knew that even the supreme heavenly demon, who was at the peak of the spirit-severing stage, had not found it, let alone him. Not to mention that it was something that happened tens of thousands of years ago. At the same time, the other party's explanation also allowed him to understand many ancient secrets and the reason why the other party stayed. He also understood why the extraterrestrial demon in the Dragon Palace could not recover after tens of thousands of years in a place like the Dragon Palace, which was full of spirit chi. It was probably because of the effect of the astral worlds, that the other party's ability to absorb the spirit chi of heaven and earth was blocked. In that case, I have to thank Senior for protecting the human race in the ancient desolate region. Soon after, Baizua said in a slightly cold tone, I know that the great battle back then ultimately caused the ancient desolate region to sink. The 7 of us have sinned greatly. Now that our strength has not recovered, staying here for tens of thousands of years is also a kind of punishment. But in that great battle, except for a few people, probably no one really wanted to fight. The astral world's will of the great Tao is not something that anyone can withstand. Immortal Songhai quickly explained. Then let me ask you, in the ancient desolate battlefield, in the land of the fallen mortals, was the grade 6 land of corpse nourishing array set up by you? That immortal corpse was also refined by you? Ziyue could not help but ask when he thought of the grade 6 land of corpse nourishing array that affected the entire ancient desolate region. Ever since I was injured, I have been holed up here for tens of thousands of years and have never taken a step out. But from what you said, this land of corpse nourishing array is a grade 6 land of corpse nourishing array. If I'm not wrong, it must be the work of the poison calamity demon. The poison calamity demon was the strongest existence in the array Tao after me in the great battle back then. Back then, after the great battle, he had also survived and did not die. He was one of the 4 experts that survived back then. From your description, only he, who was born in the extraterritorial demon world and was also a grade 6 array master, could set up such a great array. But I did not expect him to be so vicious as to set up the great array directly above the ancient desolate region's dragon vein. No wonder the ancient desolate region has not recovered for tens of thousands of years. It was all his doing. Otherwise, I would have recovered my strength long ago. Why would I be holed up here? At this point, immortal Songhai could not help but reveal a furious expression. Ziyue saw that immortal Songhai's expression was not fake and believed him. But he asked, in the battle back then, there were 4 experts that survived? Who were they? That's right, there were 3 other people besides me. The 3 of them were the sovereign heavenly demon, the limitless sword deity, and the poison calamity demon. Among them, the sovereign heavenly demon was the strongest. He was a top demon master at the peak of the spirit severing stage. Even the astral world's great Tao could not do anything to him. He broke free and escaped to the extraterritorial realm. Apart from him, there was the limitless sword deity. His strength was second only to the sovereign heavenly demon. The injuries he suffered back then were also the lightest among the few of us besides the sovereign heavenly demon. But even I do not know where he is hiding. Perhaps he has already recovered his strength and escaped from the restraints of the astral world. The remaining ones are me and the poison calamity demon. He is a demon master level expert from the extraterritorial demon world. It is said that he has long had a grudge with the astral world. It is normal for him to destroy the dragon vein and set up the corpse nurturing array. But in the end, he will harm others and himself. Immortal Songhai sighed and continued, if I am not wrong, the appearance of this secret cave may have something to do with him or the sovereign heavenly demon, because I have already spied on it. On the other side of this secret cave is the extraterritorial demon world, where the sovereign heavenly demon and the poison calamity demon are connected. But I do not know what method they use to achieve this. You are saying that all of this is man-made, a scheme by the sovereign heavenly demon and the poison calamity demon? Ziyue's body shook and he hurriedly asked, although I am not certain, I am at least 90% sure. The sovereign heavenly demon was determined to obtain the chaos origin Tao talisman back then. Although it was extremely difficult to overlap 2 astral realms, it wasn't impossible. The extraterritorial demon world has a deep foundation and countless experts. It is 10 times more than the astral world. Once it overlaps, it will definitely devour the entire astral world. At that time, no matter how well the Chaos Origin Tao Talisman is hidden in the astral world, it will still be found by him. As he spoke, immortal Songhai could not help but reveal a trace of worry on his face. The sovereign heavenly demon was known for his ferocity and brutality. Once he broke through to the Tao integration stage, which was above the spirit severing stage, with the help of the Chaos Origin Tao Talisman, it was definitely not a good thing for the many living beings in the surrounding astral world. Even if the heavenly radiant star was also considered a large astral world, it would still be difficult to resist the invasion of the sovereign heavenly demon who had reached the Tao integration stage. Who would have thought that there would be so many secrets hidden in between? Ziyue was also shocked. He had always thought that the overlapping of the astral world and the extraterritorial demon world was the normal operating law of the astral world. He had never imagined that the real reason could be traced back to the Chaos Origin Tao Talisman that had appeared 10,000 years ago. However, at the same time, he also felt a strong pressure in his heart. The poison calamity demon and the sovereign heavenly demon. Of these 2, one was a late-stage primordial spirit expert, while the other was already at the peak of the primordial spirit realm. They were supreme beings who were only a step away from the primordial spirit integration stage. Once the 2 astral worlds overlapped and such experts descended upon the astral world, the scene would be akin to the end of the world. It would be a disaster for the countless living beings in the astral world, and even for himself. No, I must not let such a thing happen. Thinking of the many living beings in the astral world, Fan Qingyu, Zhao Yuer, and his many relatives in the ancient desolate region, a trace of determination flashed across Ziyue's eyes. He had too many ties here. Born in the astral world, he was naturally close to this world. If possible, he naturally did not want to see the astral world being devoured and his relatives and countless living beings in the astral world losing their homes. By the way, what did you mean when you said that I'm finally here? Ziyue could not help but ask again. Chapter 841. The other party's words made him feel as if he had long been anticipated. Although he knew that with the other party's strength and realm, the other party probably knew everything about his early performance in the ancient barren region like the back of his hand. However, when he thought of the secret of the attribute panel, a strong sense of vigilance instinctively flashed across his heart. Although he did not know what level of treasure the primordial chaos Tao talisman was that made the immortals descend and fight to the death for it, he was very clear that in terms of magical value and assistance to a cultivator's cultivation, his attribute panel was definitely not inferior to the primordial chaos Tao talisman. In fact, it was countless times more powerful. If he had been under the other party's observation long ago, then he couldn't guarantee that his secret would have been discovered by the other party. The battle 10,000 years ago really destroyed the ancient barren region too severely. All the strong cultivators were lost. Now the strongest is only at the God realm. I'm sure you've seen the secret cavern. The reason why only Aperture Enlightening Realm extraterrestrial demons have entered now is because I have set up a defensive array. Otherwise, with the size of the connecting passage to the extraterrestrial domain, at least Golden Core Realm extraterrestrial demons will be able to use it to enter the ancient barren region. With extraterrestrial demons of such strength and an endless stream of other demonic creatures, I think you should know the fate of the ancient barren region without me telling you. At this point, Immortal Songhai paused slightly and looked at Ziyue before continuing. Although I barely managed to preserve my life because of this 9 revolutions isolation array and was able to slowly recover, most of the time I actually have to go into hibernation to recover. However, this time the extraterrestrial demons have merged with the star realm and are coming with great momentum. I have a hunch that in just a few years there will be primordial soul realm cultivators entering. However, the array I have set up may be able to block Golden Core Realm extraterrestrial demons, but it definitely won't be able to block the attacks of countless primordial soul realm extraterrestrial demons. If I happen to be in hibernation and don't notice the invasion of the extraterrestrial demons, it will be a disaster for the entire ancient barren region. Senior, do you usually use hibernation to recover your strength? Ziyue's heart skipped a beat, and he couldn't help but ask. That's right. Under sealed sky decimating earth, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth that enveloped the entire world simply had no fate with me. I can only rely on hibernation to reduce my consumption. Then, with the help of the 9 revolutions isolation grand array, I can intercept a small amount of spiritual energy and begin to recover. Thus, under normal circumstances, I would be in a state of hibernation. It was only in recent years that I began to awaken due to the appearance of this secret cave. Speaking of which, when I woke up after 100 years of slumber, it was when you left the 100,000 mountains. However, even I did not expect that in this barren, ancient, desolate region, there would be someone as talented as you. It has only been 7 or 8 years, but your strength has already soared to the point where it has reached the middle stage of the primordial spirit realm. Even I am in awe. As Immortal Vast Sea spoke, he couldn't help but sigh emotionally. He boasted that he had seen many things and had lived for tens of thousands of years. He had definitely seen many peerless geniuses. However, there were very few who could advance as quickly as Ziyue. On the other hand, all those that could compare to Bai Ziyue were outstanding geniuses of the current generation, the Lord of a Star, or the direct descendant of an expert at the true immortal realm. They were addressed respectfully as saints and sons of the stars in the outside world. Senior, you flatter me. Everything was just luck. Ziyue shook his head and said modestly. However, he secretly heaved a sigh of relief. In this way, Immortal Vast Sea obviously didn't know the secret of his attribute panel. At most, he was surprised by the rapid advancement of his strength. Senior, do you mean that you need me to guard this place and prevent the extraterrestrial demons of the primordial spirit realm from entering the ancient desolate region? Immediately after, Ziyue asked again. That's right. The fusion of the extraterrestrial demon world and the star realm will cause a huge change in this world. I have to quickly accumulate strength and recover my strength to deal with the unknown calamity. Therefore, I plan to go into seclusion to recover in half a year. If you don't appear by then, I can only try my best to increase the strength of my recently accepted disciple. Although it will greatly damage his foundation and make it impossible for him to reach the spirit-severing stage in the future, it can at least delay the ancient desolate region for a few more years. I'll be doing my part. Immortal Songhai nodded and said, Senior, is your disciple the legendary sacred Lord Jinfa? Ziyue's heart skipped a beat. He inexplicably thought of sacred Lord Jinfa, who claimed to be the successor of a perfected immortal. This title was indeed very famous. If he brought it to the outside world, those who didn't know would think that he was an expert at the peak of the primordial spirit realm or even the supreme realm. It's him. This disciple of mine is very talented and can be considered as one of the best in the ancient desolate region. However, his temperament and cultivation are still lacking after all. Immortal Songhai's face darkened. He was speechless about his disciple calling himself Sacred Lord Jinfa. However, he had only accepted this disciple as a backup plan. His main purpose was to guide this disciple. Therefore, he didn't pursue this matter too much. Young people should have such ambitions. Ziyue smiled and took the initiative to remove himself from this matter. Although he was also young and might not even be as old as Sacred Lord Jinfa, his strength had already surpassed the younger generation by leaps and bounds. Then, he pondered for a moment and said, Senior, do you have a way to resolve this crisis once and for all? As a cultivator from the ancient desolate region, he naturally wouldn't hesitate to come and guard this place when the ancient desolate region was really facing such a great calamity. However, if it was possible, he hoped to resolve this problem once and for all. As for relying on Immortal Songhai, after all, Immortal Songhai wasn't from the astral world, nor was he a cultivator from the ancient desolate region. The reason why he had set up this formation to protect the ancient desolate region was to recover his strength. At the moment when the astral world and the extraterrestrial demon world were fusing, the world was constantly changing. Once the extraterrestrial demon world invaded too much, the astral world's seal sky, decimating Earth technique wouldn't be effective against them. At that time, they might not do anything for the astral world. It would be good enough if they didn't help the sovereign demon and the poison calamity demon to attack them. Resolve this problem once and for all? Of course there are. Immortal Songhai frowned and looked at Ziyue. If you want to resolve the crisis of the ancient desolate region once and for all, you have to completely destroy this secret cave. There are even some who use supreme methods to completely separate the astral world and the extraterrestrial demon world. However, even those above the Tao integration realm would find it difficult to do the latter. And I can forget about it. As for the former, it's also extremely difficult to do. You have to know that if there's no reason, it's impossible for two worlds to be drawn close to each other. Combined with my understanding of the sovereign heavenly demon and the poison calamity heavenly demon, if my guess is correct, they must have used some method to transfer some of the origin energy of the astral boundary to the extraterritorial demon world. The opening of this space passage is actually the result of the origin source of the astral world being maintained in the extraterrestrial demon world. Therefore, if you want to completely destroy this space passage, you have to be able to directly enter the extraterrestrial demon world through this space passage and use your supreme strength to seize that origin source of the astral world. As long as the origin source of the astral world returns to the astral world and enters this space passage, the astral world's power will naturally seal this space passage completely and prevent the ancient desolate region from being invaded by the extraterrestrial demons. Enter the extraterrestrial demon world and seize the origin source of the astral world. Ziyue's heart trembled. He naturally knew the difficulty of this. The extraterrestrial demon world was a world that was 10 times or even 100 times bigger than the astral world. There were so many powerful figures that it was as vast as the stars. Among them, there were more than a dozen existences above the spirit-severing realm, including the sovereign demon, who was at the peak of the spirit-severing realm and was only a step away from the Tao integration realm, who would have the strength and courage to enter another world alone and seize the origin source of the astral world. Not to mention that this spatial passageway only allowed golden core realm cultivators to step in. Once a cultivator of that level entered the extraterrestrial demon world, wouldn't he die without a doubt? Not to mention seizing the origin source of the astral world. That's right. The origin source of the astral world is the fundamental reason why the space passage is formed. Without the support of the origin source, no matter how close the two worlds are, it's extremely difficult to form such a stable space passage. However, even if I don't say it, you should know how dangerous the extraterrestrial demon world is. Not to mention that there are no spirit-severing realm cultivators in the astral world who can turn the tide. Even if there are, once they enter the extraterrestrial demon world, it's extremely dangerous. It's very likely that they'll be besieged and killed by the extraterrestrial demons above the spirit-severing realm in that world. In the end, the foundation of the astral world is not as strong as that of the extraterrestrial demon world. Immortal Songhai sighed and said, "The world level of the astral world was indeed far inferior to that of the extraterrestrial demon world. The strongest cultivator that could withstand it was only at the peak of the primordial soul realm. Not only was it extremely difficult to break through to the spirit-severing realm in the extreme realm, but once they broke through, they wouldn't be able to stay in the astral world for long at all. They would be driven out by the great Tao will and have no choice but to step into the endless starry sky. Tens of thousands of years ago, the astral world was actually able to withstand the long-term stay of spirit-severing realm experts. It's only because the great battle with the extraterrestrial demons that lasted for 100 years caused too much damage to the astral world that it slowly fell and only allowed the existence of the extreme realm experts." Ziyuer explained first, then thought of this secret cave and sighed. What a pity. Even if there really is someone who can turn the tide, so what? This space passage can only allow golden core realm cultivators to enter at most now. If they're stronger, they might cause the space to collapse and be killed by the power of the two worlds. Actually, with the stability of the space passage now, it's not impossible for primordial soul realm cultivators to enter the extraterrestrial demon world. I have a unique treasure called the Space Ruler. It can increase the stability of the surrounding space by 10 times. For example, in this world, an attack at the peak of the primordial soul realm can break the space and see the turbulence of the extraterrestrial star. However, if you use my Space Ruler to stabilize the space, then even extreme realm experts or early spirit-severing realm cultivators will find it difficult to break the space barrier and see the turbulence of the extraterrestrial star. Therefore, even if the space passage can only allow golden core realm cultivators to enter and exit, with the Space Ruler, the strength of the cultivators who enter and exit will also be greatly increased. It can allow early primordial soul realm and mid-spirit severing realm cultivators to enter and exit. Immortal Songhai explained when he heard this. Is that so? Ziyue's heart skipped a beat, and he couldn't help but feel a little restless. He thought of himself. What would happen if he entered the extraterrestrial demon world? He was quite confident in his own strength. After creating the Great Tao Convergence method, he estimated that even an ordinary expert at the early stage of the spirit-severing realm would not be his match. With such strength, unless he encountered several experts at the early stage of the spirit-severing realm or directly encountered a top expert at the intermediate stage of the spirit-severing realm or above, he would definitely not fall into a situation of certain death. As for the extraterrestrial demon world, although there were many experts at the spirit-severing realm and above, correspondingly, the world was also extremely vast. It was extremely rare for there to be several spirit-severing realm experts in one place. Not to mention, he also had many trump cards in his hands. If he used the time reversal and time acceleration abilities on his attribute panel properly, they would definitely increase his chances of survival by a large margin. Even if he faced a mid or late spirit-severing realm expert, it was not impossible for him to escape. Of course, the most important thing was that he thought of the amount of soul energy he needed to increase his strength. 20 billion. This number was simply too much. If he was in the astral world, he estimated that he would not be able to accumulate it even if he spent hundreds of years. After all, there were limited experts in the astral world, and there were not that many enemies around him. If he only relied on a small amount, it would naturally be incomparably slow. However, if he was in the extraterrestrial demon world, the situation would be completely different. In the extraterrestrial demon world, demonic creatures were everywhere. They were all enemies, and there were countless experts. Almost all existences in the world were his enemies. Naturally, the speed at which he obtained soul energy would soar to an unimaginable level. 20 billion soul energy was definitely not a difficult number to achieve in the extraterrestrial demon world. Thinking of this, a trace of determination appeared on his face, and he said, "Senior, can you lend me your space ruler temporarily? I plan to go to the extraterrestrial demon world and explore it." "What?" Immortal Songhai's eyes widened, and he asked in a hoarse voice, "You want to enter the extraterrestrial demon world, find the origin power of the astral world, and completely block this space passage." Chapter 842. He was indeed shocked. Although he knew that Ziyue's cultivation had advanced at a shocking speed and that he was not weak, he was still only at the mid-stage essence soul realm. In the ancient barren region, a mid-stage primordial soul realm cultivator might be unparalleled and could be called a #1 cultivator. However, compared to the entire astral world, it was nothing, not to mention the extraterrestrial demon world, whose overall strength was countless times stronger than the astral world. That was a place where essence soul realm cultivators were everywhere and spirit severing realm cultivators were not rare. If a mid-stage nascent soul realm cultivator were to step into it, it would not take long for him to be killed by the many extraterrestrial devils. "I want to give it a try," Ziyue said firmly. "Do you know the dangers involved? Logically speaking, you shouldn't be such a reckless person to be able to advance to the mid-stage essence soul realm in such a short time." Immortal Songhai said immediately, "I naturally have my reasons. Besides, who can say that I'm definitely going to die? If I'm not certain, I won't take the risk easily." Ziyue said confidently, "I know that Senior Space Ruler must be extremely precious. Otherwise, how about I use something as collateral or exchange?" With that, Ziyue flipped his hand and took out a treasure. It was the superior grade fiend treasure, the blood-stained war flag, that he had obtained after breaking the corpse nurturing lands array. "This is the demon blood fiend flag? This is the famous fiend treasure of the silver ancient heavenly demons in the ancient war. I didn't expect it to fall into your hands." Immortal Songhai could not help but exclaim in shock. The demon blood war flag had played a huge role in the ancient war. The demonic chi on it was ferocious and tyrannical. Once contaminated, it would be an extremely troublesome matter for experts like them. He really did not expect Ziyue to have the opportunity to obtain this fiend treasure. "It's just luck." Ziyue shook his head and said, "What do you think? Although my space ruler is also a numinous treasure, it's only a middle-grade numinous treasure. In terms of value, it's far inferior to the demon blood fiend flag. Are you really willing to exchange it as collateral?" Immortal Songhai naturally had no reason to disagree, but he still asked, "It's fine. Although this demon blood fiend flag is extraordinarily powerful, it is not very useful to me now. On the other hand, your space ruler is exactly what I need, so I know what to do with it." Ziyue waved his hand and said, "Moreover, even though this devil blood fiend flag was of an extremely high grade and possessed shocking might, it was precisely because of this that it was comparatively much more difficult for him to refine it and freely use it. At the very least, it was not something that could be done in a short period of time." The demon blood fiend flag's item spirit was not as sensible as the Kunwa Golden Pagoda's item spirit. It did not recognize Xiao Chun as its master because of his talent and strength. "Since you've put it this way, why don't I return the spatial ruler to you?" Immortal Songhai sighed. With a flip of his hand, he took out a 3-foot-long ruler and handed it over. Then, he said seriously, "However, there is something I must remind you of. Entering the extraterrestrial devil world is absolutely not as simple as you imagine. An otherworldly being will step into an unfamiliar world. If you're just passing by, it will be fine. However, if you cause a huge massacre and wantonly destroy that world, then the great Tao will of heaven and earth will definitely sense it. Punishments would be meted out according to the degree of damage caused by the otherworldly beings. Generally speaking, it is just the decline of your luck and the rejection of heaven and earth. It is not a big deal. If you keep a low profile and be cautious, there will always be some chance of survival. However, if you provoke the great Tao will of the extraterrestrial devil world and send down divine punishment like sealing the sky and decimating the earth like we did, then you will find it difficult to move a single step. This is because every time you attack, you will consume your energy without being able to replenish it. Perhaps in a short period of time, you can still rely on the natural treasures, spirit pills, and spirit medicines that you've accumulated to replenish your energy. But after a long time, you'll experience the pain of having to use every bit of origin energy sparingly like me." Immortal Songhai warned. "I understand." Ziyue took the spatial ruler and said solemnly. In his heart, he was actually not as worried as he had imagined. Unlike Immortal Songhai and the others, if he were to be punished by the great Tao will of heaven and earth and be unable to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, he could still use the spiritual energy on the attribute panel to recover his strength. As long as his spiritual energy was not depleted, the power of his primordial spirit would not be depleted. As for other divine punishment methods, the great Tao will of heaven and earth still had to act according to the laws of heaven and earth. It could not be like a real cultivator, targeting a single enemy and continuously attacking. Otherwise, no matter how strong Immortal Songhai and the others were, they would have died long ago under the great Tao will of heaven and earth. Then Bai Ziyue cupped his hands and his body swayed. He performed 1,000 miles in an instant and disappeared on the spot. Although the crisis in the ancient desolate region was imminent, he naturally would not choose to enter the spatial tunnel immediately. Apart from the spatial ruler, which he needed to spend time to refine, he also wanted to take a look at the many familiar people in the ancient desolate region. It could be considered as fulfilling one of his wishes. After all, no matter what, entering the extraterritorial devil world was an extremely dangerous and terrifying place. Wu Country, Heaven Spirit County, Wujiang County. Stepping into Wujiang County once again, Ziyue could not help but feel a trace of homesickness in his heart. He thought back to the scene of him living here in the past. From entering the headquarters of the Scorching Sun Gang, receiving a position, cultivating martial arts, and experiencing many battles. Everything seemed to have happened a long time ago, but in reality, it had only been 10 years. 10 years, to me, is like the sea turning into mulberry fields. Thousands of changes have happened in an instant. But for this place, it doesn't seem to have changed much. His gaze fell on the surroundings of Wujiang County. Lanterns hung high and shops stood in great numbers. It was a familiar scene. Perhaps the only change was that there were more new buildings in Wujiang County. There seemed to be more people coming and going than when he had left. It was also worth mentioning that the distribution of power in Wujiang County was slightly different from 10 years ago. Ziyue's divine sense swept over, and his gaze also opened up. He found a few familiar figures. From the many conversations in the city and the thoughts that spread out, he understood many changes in Wujiang County. After the leader of the Scorching Sun Gang, Jiang Tao, reached the Xiantian stage, they were no longer satisfied with a small place like Wujiang County. They became even more ambitious and attacked the surrounding cities. In the end, because they angered a certain cultivator, they were beheaded. After hearing this news, Ziyue's heart also trembled and revealed a complicated expression. Although he did not have much contact with the leader of the Scorching Sun Gang, Jiang Tao, he did receive some care from Jiang Tao when he was young. Now that Jiang Tao had fallen, he finally felt a trace of impermanence in life. Without a leader, the surrounding cities immediately launched a counterattack on Wujiang County. Fortunately, the Scorching Sun Gang had a strong foundation, and with the help of the people from the Bai clan, they were able to stabilize. However, the Bai clan was only a newly promoted cultivation clan and had to be checked and balanced by the surrounding cultivation clans. They could barely protect the inheritance of the Scorching Sun Gang, but in the end, they were unable to let the Scorching Sun Gang continue to be the leader of the Jianghu. However, speaking of which, the Bai clan is now even more prosperous. I heard that 8 years ago, the Chuyang sect, the #1 cultivation clan in the world, once sent a cultivator to the Bai clan in Wujiang County and recruited the Bai clan's young master, Bai Zijuan. Now, it is said that he is one of the 7 true disciples of the Chuyang sect. He is extremely powerful and famous. Because of this, the Bai clan is now one of the top cultivation clans in the Wu Kingdom. There are many people who want to join them. Speaking of which, the reason why the Bai clan and the Bai clan's young master, Bai Zijuan, could develop like this is all because of the founder of the Bai clan, Ziyue. It is said that Ziyue is the famous Kunlun Taoist who is known as the #1 expert in the ancient desolate region. Because of this, the Wu Kingdom's royal family, the Chuyang sect, and many other cultivation clans sent countless resources and treasures to the Bai clan during that period of time to express their goodwill. It was also with the support of so many forces that the Bai clan was able to soar and become the pillar that it is today. It is a pity that this Kunlun Taoist has completely disappeared after the shocking battle 8 years ago. Otherwise, the Bai clan's development would be countless times more prosperous. Under the guidance of Ziyue, the discussion clearly described the recent development of the Scorching Sun Gang and the Bai clan in recent years. I didn't expect that, even without me, the Bai clan's development would be so good. Although being one of the top cultivation clans in the Wu Kingdom isn't much, with such a reputation and the protection of the various cultivation clans, if nothing unexpected happens, the Bai clan will be stable enough. Ziyue raised his eyebrows in surprise. He accepted the goodwill of the Chaoyang sect, the Wu Kingdom's royal family, and the various cultivation clans. He knew that other than a few forces, most people were actually just a little afraid of him. After all, the #1 expert in the ancient desolate region was still very intimidating. For him, it was enough for the Bai clan to be stable and develop smoothly, and for his parents and relatives to be able to benefit and live happily and healthily. This was also the reason why he was able to wander the outside world without worry and grow and cultivate unfettered. It is a pity that accidents will eventually happen. The threat of the extraterritorial demon world is targeted at the entire star boundary. Although the ancient desolate region is isolated from the rest of the world, there is still a space tunnel. If it is not dealt with, everything in the ancient desolate region will cease to exist. Ziyue sighed in his heart and became even more determined to go to the extraterritorial demon world. Then, his body moved, and he turned into a stream of light and disappeared. Then, he stopped in Julin City, which was 800 miles away from Wujiang County. Looking at the scene in a huge mansion in Julin City from afar, Yi Zichen looked at the scene. Ziyue saw his father, Bai Yong, and his mother, He Honghua, because the two of them had been carefully recuperating for many years, nourished by various nourishing items and cultivated martial arts. They had now reached the level of second-rate experts. Therefore, they looked much younger than when he had just left. In addition, in the mansion, he saw many of his relatives and elders, as well as some juniors and nephews. Although the population was not very prosperous, they all had a noble aura. Obviously, they were living a very rich life. Among them, there were a few nephews who had the aptitude for immortal arts. Now that they had begun to cultivate immortal arts, their aura was even more outstanding. In addition to some of his relatives, there were also many vassals in the Bai mansion. They were worshippers and vassal experts who had come to seek refuge. Among them, there were more than 10 immortal arts cultivators. The leader had reached the mid-stage of the aperture opening realm and was the leader of the worshippers. There were also 2 early-stage aperture opening realm worshippers and 7 or 8 late-stage qi refinement realm worshippers. Amongst the martial artists, there were many experts. 1 was at the late stage of the congenital realm, 3 were at the middle stage of the congenital realm, and 4 were at the early stage of the congenital realm. There were even more than 10 first-rate experts. In a martial kingdom, it was indeed worthy of being called a top-rate cultivation clan. It's a pity that these worshippers are still outsiders. Seeing this, Zus sighed. With a flip of his hand, 2 spirit pills appeared in each of his hands. Then, with a flick of his fingers, the 2 spirit pills turned into 2 beams of spirit light and entered the bodies of his parents. These 2 spirit pills were 4th-grade advanced spirit pills that he had specially refined. Not only were they extremely gentle, but they also had the effect of prolonging one's life. After these 2 spirit pills entered their bodies, not only would his parents' physiques silently improve greatly, but both of them would also enter the Tao for martial arts. In a short period of time, their strength would increase greatly and directly enter the aperture opening realm, the God realm, and even the peak of the God realm. At least in the ancient desolate region, this kind of immortal art strength was enough to dominate. It could even support the ambitions of both of them, of course. He did not think about what his parents would do after they became powerful. He would just let them do whatever they wanted. He would only do what was within his power. It could be said that he did not let them down for raising him. Then he thought about it. In the end, he did not directly reveal himself to them. Instead, with a thought, he left behind some cultivation technique inheritance and some treasures that could increase the strength of the Bai Mansion in a short period of time. He passed them on to his parents through the dream imparting technique before he floated away. As for Bai Yong and He Honghua, after their bodies shook, their bodies and auras began to change from the inside to the outside. They also sensed the sudden appearance of additional memories and the location of some hidden treasures in their minds. Their hearts were startled, and then they instinctively guessed something. They hurriedly shouted, "Ziyue? Is Mount Ziyue back?" They believed that in this world, there was no one other than Ziyue who would increase their strength without asking for anything in return and give them such a huge amount of treasures for no reason. As the 2 of them shouted, they hurriedly looked around. Among them, Bai Yong directly climbed to the top of the Bai Mansion's wall. However, as far as the eye could see, Ziyue's figure was nowhere to be seen. However, many experts in the Bai Mansion heard the commotion and rushed over. They looked as if they were facing a great enemy. After a long time, Bai Yong and Honghua sighed helplessly and said bitterly, "It's okay. You can leave." They knew that Ziyue would not see them again. Chapter 843. It wasn't that Ziyue didn't want to see his parents, but he didn't know how to face them, because after this appearance, they would be separated again very soon. And this time, it was very likely to be an eternal farewell, because even though he was extremely confident in his own strength, he couldn't guarantee that he would be able to escape unscathed after entering the extraterrestrial demon world. After all, if he stepped into a different world and faced the siege of almost all the cultivators in the extraterrestrial demon world, many of whom were far more powerful than him, even immortal Songhai at his peak would probably be terrified. One had to know that the supreme celestial demon was a top existence only one step away from the Tao integration realm. Rather than being heartbroken when his family was separated, it was better not to see them for the time being and wait for their reunion. After seeing his parents and family and seeing that they were living a peaceful and happy life, Ziyue heaved a long sigh of relief and then began to travel around the ancient barren region. First, he walked his own path of cultivation again and witnessed all the things that he had encountered during his cultivation. Then, he began to look for his old friends one by one. Among those old friends, there were companions who had practiced martial arts with him when he was a child, good friends on the path of cultivation, and companions who knew him well. Although he walked the great Tao alone, he had also received a lot of help. However, as time passed, the world changed. The world of immortal spells was not always stable. There were also many accidents. For example, the leader of the Scorching Sun Gang, who was full of ambition, died because of his own ambition. Qin Xiaoping, who cultivated with him when he was a child, was also seriously injured because of a dispute in the pugilistic world. After dragging on for 2 years, he died of illness at home. Several senior and junior brothers he was familiar with in the Chaoyang sect also died. Ziyue understood all of them clearly, but he could only leave some opportunities for their descendants out of a sense of nostalgia and silently leave. After that, he didn't meet anyone. Instead, he went to various immortal spell forces in the ancient Barren region and left some cultivation techniques and inheritances, either through the immortal spell dream entry technique or various coincidences. Or, in some places, they deliberately created ruins that hid many inheritances and treasures of various grades. Ziyue felt that the cultivation techniques in the ancient Barren region were too simple and crude, and the upper limit of cultivation was too low. Therefore, he deliberately left some opportunities behind. It was all for the sake of raising the upper limit of cultivation in the ancient desolate region. In the future, when the cultivators from the ancient barren territory entered other realms, they would not only be weaker than others, but also have far less cultivation methods and inheritances than the cultivators from the firmament territory. In his opinion, the overall strength of the ancient desolate region could not be compared to the other regions. After all, under the environmental restrictions, the ancient desolate region was too barren. However, he absolutely did not want to see the cultivators of the ancient desolate region being far inferior to the cultivators of the other realms in the same realm. Since I've already given out the opportunity, I might as well give them a big one. After setting up the various opportunities, Ziyue thought for a while and distributed 7 Kunlun tokens throughout the entire ancient desolate region. By gathering these 7 Kunlun tokens, one could use them to find the place of inheritance that he had specially left behind, the Kunlun Immortal Palace. In the Kunlun Immortal Palace, he had specially left behind 7 cultivation method inheritance stone steels that could lead one to the peak of the primordial soul realm. More than 100 Abijnas, great Abijnas, and even Dao techniques were left behind. He had also set up a test for those who entered to obtain a corresponding protective treasure and a special jade stone. Among them, the 7 cultivation methods that could lead one to the peak of the primordial soul realm were the top inheritances of the current generation. As long as the cultivators who obtained these inheritances did not lack resources and were not weak, they could use these cultivation methods to smoothly cultivate to the peak of the primordial soul realm. Compared to Ziyue in the past, he was much stronger. One must know that from the beginning, he had been limited by the inheritance of cultivation methods. In the end, he had no choice but to step on the path of creating his own cultivation method step by step. Although it was precisely because of this that the current by Ziyue, who possessed such great achievements and astonishing strength, was able to accumulate such a terrifying and deep foundation and strength. Only he himself was aware of the difficulties and hardships involved. As for the various Abijnas, great Abijnas, and Dao techniques, they were just cultivation methods that matched the cultivation method. Once cultivated, it was enough to greatly increase the combat power of the cultivator who obtained these inheritances. As for the so-called protective treasures, they were all Dharma treasures that Ziyue could not use but could not bear to throw away. With his collection, the weakest of these Dharma treasures was at the level of an upper-grade golden core treasure. Most of them were even primordial soul treasures. There were hundreds of scattered Dharma treasures, and they were all thrown into the so-called Kunlun Immortal Palace by Ziyue. As for the special jade stone at the end, it was actually a type of identity token. With this identity token, the cultivator could directly enter the North Nether sect that he had created and obtain more resources and more precious inheritances from experts of the spirit-severing realm and above. In fact, this was equivalent to Ziyue admitting that those who had passed the test of the Kunlun token and obtained the inheritances were disciples of the North Nether sect. In this way, I can be considered to have left some backup plans for the ancient desolate region and done something within my power. Ziyue secretly spread the rumors about the Kunlun token and the Kunlun Immortal Palace. However, he did not show himself. Soon after, his figure disappeared completely without a trace. It's much easier to refine this space ruler than I thought. Zue turned his hand and looked at the ruler in his palm that was floating quietly in the void. He sighed with emotion. This ruler was naturally the space ruler, a middle-grade spiritual treasure that he had obtained from immortal Songhai. After 2 months, Zue finally refined this space ruler completely. Compared to some cultivators who needed at least dozens of years of hard work and blood refinement to refine spiritual treasures, Zue only took 2 months to refine it. It was indeed much faster. All of this was attributed to his amazing strength in immortal spells and the potential that he had shown that had gained the recognition of the space ruler's artifact spirit. In fact, it was more related to his mastery of time reversal and time acceleration. Time and space were the two supreme great Daos in the immortal spell world. They were naturally compatible. Although Zue could only use these two great abilities with the help of the attribute panel, after using them many times and spending a lot of time pondering, he naturally mastered the usage of them and understood the profound meaning of the Tao. Only in this way would he be able to refine the space ruler with more ease and efficiency. Now, the space ruler has been refined. Then, it's time for me to really go to the extraterritorial demon realm. Zue turned his hand, and the space ruler disappeared again. Then, he took a deep breath and turned into a stream of light that went straight to the secret cave in the ancient desolate region. In the middle of the night, dark clouds covered the sky, and the world became silent and dark. As far as the eye could see, it was pitch black. Even immortal spell cultivators could not see more than 100 meters away, unless they had specially cultivated the spiritual eye technique. Silently, Zue's figure appeared in the void. Below him, there were many stations. This was the location of the secret cave in the ancient desolate region. These stations were the cultivators of various sects who stayed here to guard against all kinds of demons that might rush out of the secret cave at any time. Have you really made up your mind? Without a sound, a silver-haired old man who seemed to be completely hidden in the depths of the void but was only a vague illusion in this world appeared not too far away and asked softly, "What are you going to do?" "Senior, thank you for your concern. I have made up my mind." Zue replied. "Okay, I won't stop you. I wish you a smooth journey. However, time is limited. I will only wait for you for 3 months. In 3 months, I will release the restrictions of the formation and personally guard the secret cave to prevent any extraterrestrial demons above the god realm from stepping into the ancient desolate region. If you don't return in 3 months, I will take it that you have failed. If you die in the extraterrestrial demon world, at that time, I will raise the formation again and increase its power. With the power of the void shattering, I will break the entrance to the secret cave. Although it won't completely sever the space passage, after the space is shattered, it will at least maintain the peace of this place for 5 years. As for after 5 years, I don't care. After all, this place belongs to the people of your star realm. I only need to wait until the great Tao wills of the extraterrestrial demon world and the great Tao wills of the star realm connect and begin to devour each other. Then, I will be able to break free from the restrictions of this world and quickly recover my strength. At that time, I will be able to break the space barrier and leave the extraterrestrial starry sky. From then on, I will be free and unfettered. I just hope that you won't blame me." Immortal Songhai's face turned solemn, and then he said seriously, "I understand. Senior, I have seen what you have done for the ancient desolate region. I believe that anyone in the ancient desolate region would be grateful to you for buying us 5 years. Why would you blame me?" Zue shook his head and replied. He knew that immortal Songhai's thoughts about the star realm and the ancient desolate region were extremely complicated. The punishment of the great Tao wills and the decadence of 10,000 years made him angry and sullen. However, although the invasion of the extraterrestrial demon world brought him a turn for the better, it also caused him to truly encounter a life and death crisis. After all, there were definitely many spirit-severing stage experts in the extraterrestrial demon world. Before he completely recovered, he would be in a life and death crisis if he encountered them. Therefore, he had schemed and plotted for the star realm and the ancient desolate region to buy time. In the end, both sides were bound together for good or ill. However, just as immortal Songhai had said, if the great Tao wills of the extraterrestrial demon world devoured the great Tao wills of the star realm, then the divine punishment of sealing the heavens and decimating Earth on him would also recede. From then on, he would be able to regain his freedom and his strength. He would then rush out of the extraterrestrial starry sky and be free and unfettered. Therefore, it was indeed thoughtful of him to choose to buy 5 more years for the star realm. Goodbye, Zuek growled. Then his figure flashed, and he headed toward the entrance of the secret cave. When he stepped into the entrance, Ziyue could not help but turn back and look in the direction of his parents in the ancient desolate region. Then, he involuntarily looked at the encampment of the Chuyang sect not far away. In the encampment, there was a handsome young cultivator who looked similar to Ziyue. At this moment, he was wearing a Taoist robe and had an otherworldly aura. His every move seemed to contain the aura of an immortal, and he appeared very calm. He was one of the 7 core disciples of the Chaoyang sect by Zijuan. At the same time, he was also Ziyue's biological younger brother from the same father and mother. Long ago, when Ziyue was traveling in the ancient desolate region, he had entered the dream inheritance and implanted a cultivation technique inheritance that led to the peak of the primordial soul realm into by Zijuan's mind. This kind of inheritance would gradually appear in his mind as his strength increased. He had also silently integrated an origin spirit pill into by Zijuan's body. The origin spirit pill was a type of immortal technique, great pill. It was extremely beneficial to a cultivator's physique, talent, and soul strength. With the help of the origin spirit pill, not only would by Zijuan's physique increase slowly as his strength increased, but even his cultivation talent and soul strength would also increase greatly. For example, although by Zijuan's cultivation talent was considered to be above average, compared to the other 6 core disciples of the Chaoyang sect, he was actually slightly weaker. It was only because of Ziyue's good fortune as the strongest person in the ancient desolate region and the accumulation of countless resources that he was able to cultivate to the middle stage of the aperture awakening realm in a short time with such talent and become one of the 7 core disciples. However, in the cultivation of immortal techniques, especially at the aperture awakening realm, the stronger one's talent was, the more obvious the cultivation advantage would be. If there were no accidents, by Zijuan's cultivation speed would definitely be surpassed by the other 6 core disciples due to his inferior talent, and the gap between them would widen. In the end, with the help of Ziyue's origin spirit pill, by Zijuan's cultivation talent had increased greatly. Now, it had reached the pinnacle and was not weaker than the other core disciples. Bai Zijuan believed that it would not be long before he surpassed the pinnacle and reached the earth spirit level. His cultivation path could be said to be much smoother than before. As for his soul strength, the increase was even more obvious. It was as if it was overflowing, causing the range of his divine sense to increase greatly. It was directly shown that his understanding of the same cultivation techniques and spells had already far surpassed the past by countless times. It could be said that Ziyue had already paved a great path for Bai Zijuan, allowing him to break through his own limits and have the possibility of becoming a god or golden core cultivator. However, at the moment when he was about to enter the extraterrestrial demon world, Bai Zijuan had coincidentally appeared at the entrance of the secret cave to guard it. Ziyue finally felt a little touched in his heart. He thought of his parents and how he still needed Bai Zijuan to take care of them. Therefore, Ziyue stretched out his hand and waved. Another ray of spiritual light appeared and landed on his younger brother, Bai Zijuan. This ray of spiritual light was a primordial spirit virtual image that he had refined using a special method. This primordial spirit virtual image was actually equivalent to a primordial spirit clone. Unless the other party's life was really threatened, the primordial spirit virtual image would only hide around him and not move. However, once there was an attack that really threatened his life, it would be extremely difficult to resist the counterattack of this primordial spirit virtual image, unless it was an expert above the middle or late stage of the primordial spirit virtual image. It could be said that his safety had increased greatly. As such, Ziyue's figure turned slightly and rapidly headed toward the depths of the secret cave. Chapter 844. This is the connection point between the astral realm and the extraterrestrial demon realm. It's illusory, and the spatial fluctuations are very violent. Only existences of a certain level of strength are allowed to enter. If the strength is too strong, the spatial passage will not be able to withstand it and will collapse and shatter. If the existence that enters and exits is too strong, it will even attract the attention of the great path of the astral realm or the extraterrestrial demon realm, and the great path will attack it. Ziyue looked ahead silently. There was a spatial passage with a radius of several hundred feet floating in the void. Looking from where he was, he could even vaguely see some scenes on the other side of the spatial passage that belonged to the extraterrestrial demon realm. It was the first time that Ziyue had seen such a passage that connected two worlds. He was a little touched. He also understood the danger of the connection between the two worlds. Strength, or rather, the strength of one's own spiritual power exceeded the tolerance limit of the spatial passage. The spatial passage would naturally collapse and shatter, strangling the person who entered and exited. Even if the person who entered and exited had shocking strength and incredible means, and could withstand the crushing of the spatial passage, it would attract the attention of the great path of the two worlds. Thus, divine punishment would descend, the sky and the earth would be sealed, and bad luck would surround them. From time to time, they would even attract divine punishment. Of course, the most important thing was that there would also be powerhouses of one world who would receive a reminder from the great path and launch thunderous means to eliminate them. Becoming an enemy of one world was not something that anyone could bear. However, I have the spatial ruler, so I don't need to worry about the spatial passage collapsing. Ziyue took a deep breath, flipped his hand, and took out the spatial ruler. He was not worried about the spatial passage collapsing. He was even confident that even if the space collapsed, the strangling force that fell from the sky would not pose a threat to him, because his defensive means were too strong and the strength of his physical body had reached an extremely shocking level. What he was really worried about was the attention of the great path of the extraterrestrial demon realm after entering it. If it was just sealing the sky and the earth and being surrounded by bad luck, it would be fine. He had his own means to deal with it. However, if he let the extraterritorial demon world treat him as the public enemy of the world and cause countless experts above the spirit severing stage to besiege him, then no matter how strong he was, he would not be able to withstand it. He did not forget that in the extraterritorial demon world, there was still a supreme, true, immortal powerhouse whose strength had reached the peak of the spirit-severing stage and was only one step away from the Tao integration stage. Let's keep a low profile for now and get the star boundaries origin energy first. At that time, I'll just go all out and wantonly obtain soul energy. Ziyue made up his mind and no longer hesitated. He reached out and activated the space ruler. Wong. In an instant, a special spatial spirit light poured into the spatial tunnel. Under the effect of this special spatial power, the originally still space channel immediately became stable, and the intensity of the energy it could withstand increased by more than 10 times. Although it couldn't be compared to a truly stable space, it was able to withstand Ziyue's entry and exit. Therefore, Ziyue's figure flashed, and he immediately rushed in without hesitation. Wong, Wong, Wong. After all, Ziyue's strength was too strong. Although the spatial tunnel was more than 10 times more stable than before, it still faintly showed signs of being unable to withstand it, and a crack appeared. Fortunately, the space ruler was a middle-grade spiritual treasure, after all, and it had a great effect in stabilizing the space. Ziyue was careful along the way and tried his best to hide his aura. Finally, after 10 breaths, he successfully arrived at the other side of the spatial tunnel. Then he took a step forward. Boom! A fierce attack immediately exploded in front of Ziyue's eyes and rapidly fell on him. At this time, Ziyue noticed that at least thousands of extraterritorial demons had surrounded him. These extraterritorial demons were like an army, and they surrounded Ziyue in the center. Although most of them were at the aperture awakening stage and had extremely low intelligence and strength, there were also more than 100 extraterritorial demons who were comparable to the God Realm and more than a dozen Golden Core Realm extraterritorial demons. In addition, it was worth mentioning that 2 of the extraterritorial demons had huge bodies and astonishing auras, and their strength had reached the primordial soul realm. At this moment, all the extraterritorial demons rushed over and launched a fierce attack on Ziyue. As expected, this world is not so welcoming to me. Ziyue almost immediately felt the malice brought to him by the extraterritorial demons. However, he did not take it seriously. He knew that when he entered and exited the spatial tunnel, even with the space ruler's support, the spatial fluctuations could not be hidden from the extraterritorial demons in this world. It was very normal for them to set up an ambush because of this. Therefore, the moment he rushed out of the spatial tunnel, the real Dragon Dark Armor technique had already covered his body, and the Kunwu Golden Pagoda was above his head. Rumble. Endless attacks fell on this double defense, but they could not shake him at all. Ziyue was as still as a mountain under the fierce energy attacks and the attack of countless demon soldiers. He was like an immortal who had descended to the mortal world and was full of a calm aura. It is impolite not to reciprocate. Let me show you the enthusiasm of my friend from another world. Ziyue laughed and waved his hand. Immediately, a ray of divine light swept out. This ray of divine light did not rush out fiercely and seemed to be rather slow. However, when the surrounding extraterritorial demons sensed this ray of divine light attack, the divine light had already completely descended on their bodies. Then there was a burst of zzz sounds. Silently, not only were the attacks that were about to land on him swept away, but even a large group of extraterritorial demons in the distance were also swept away by the divine light and turned into dust, turning into mesons of nothingness and dissipating into nothingness. In just one wave, at least 1,000 demons of different strengths were killed by Ziyue. Demon King, the great Demon King of the extraterritorial realm, has attacked. Screams of terror came out from the mouths of the extraterritorial demons. Obviously, they were all frightened by Ziyue's casual attack. Who are you? I am the great Sun Demon King, Zaken. I don't kill nameless people. Tell me your name. Soon, an expert from the extraterritorial demons stood out and roared. Ziyue naturally did not understand the language of the extraterritorial demons. However, when his strength reached a certain level, he could sense the meaning in their words through the fluctuations of their minds. Therefore, there was no language barrier between them. When Ziyue heard this, he smiled and said, "Unfortunately, I never remember the names of the dead." As he spoke, he used his mind and instantly released his domain, enveloping almost all the extraterritorial demons around him. Then, a flying sword slashed out like a flash of flowing light. Chi! Almost instantly, the extraterritorial demon, who called himself the Great Sun Demon King, Zaken, was pierced through. Then, as if there was no obstruction, the flying sword slashed again and killed another extraterritorial demon whose strength had reached the primordial soul realm. At this point, Ziyue's domain power really spread out. Then, with a surge of energy, the gravitational shadow domain descended. Boom! Screams of agony came out again. Except for a few extraterritorial demons whose strength had reached the golden elixir realm and whose physical strength was astonishing. Thousands of extraterritorial demons were instantly killed by the power of his domain and turned into puddles of meat paste. With my current strength, it is indeed much easier to kill these weak extraterritorial demons. Ziyue could not help but reveal a smug smile on his face. His strength was too strong, and the power of his domain was also unparalleled. Even if the gravitational shadow domain was only at the level of a perfect great divine power, Those extraterritorial demons of the Aperture Enlightening Realm, God Realm, and even Golden Elixir Realm extraterritorial demons could not withstand it at all. They were crushed by the gravity of the domain and turned into meat paste. Moreover, it is worth mentioning that these extraterritorial demons are obviously stronger than immortal spell cultivators of the same level. Correspondingly, the spiritual energy obtained after killing them is also much more. Just this wave of spiritual energy has increased my spiritual energy by more than 400 million points. I wonder how many extraterritorial demons there are in the wider world, and how much spiritual energy my spiritual energy will increase. Ziyue was very excited. He really felt carefree. In the astral realm, because of his scruples, the lack of enemies, and the scarcity of experts, the speed at which he could obtain spiritual energy was increasingly slow and scarce. It was gradually becoming difficult for him to maintain the high-intensity increase in his strength. But in the extraterritorial demon world, it was completely different, especially when the astral realm and the extraterritorial demons were close to each other. From the moment they began to connect, the two sides were already in a state of irreconcilable conflict. Any astral realm cultivator who saw the extraterritorial demons would instinctively attack and kill them. And any demonic creatures of the extraterritorial demon world would also instinctively attack when they saw the astral realm cultivators, showing no mercy at all. Therefore, in this place, Ziyue could almost kill wantonly. In the whole world, there was no one he could not kill. Of course, Ziyue was also clear that entering this world alone was bound to be fraught with danger. As the saying goes, only by knowing yourself and your enemy can you be victorious in every battle. It was very likely that he would encounter great danger and crisis if he were to wander aimlessly. Therefore, Ziyue quickly turned his gaze to the remaining extraterritorial demons of the Golden Elixir Realm who were bound by his domain but had not died immediately. He needed to understand the specific situation of this world as much as possible. He needed to know the strength, number, and distribution of the experts around him. In that case, I have no choice but to offend you. Thinking of this, Ziyue's face turned solemn, and he directly used the demonic Tao's soul search. This method was a demonic Tao expert's creation, and it had extremely high requirements for the strength of the soul. Moreover, the damage to the target of the soul search was extremely great. In light cases, the soul would be injured and become an idiot. In heavy cases, the soul would be directly shattered and the body would die. It was very cruel and sinister. Therefore, even though Ziyue had mastered this method long ago, he had rarely used it. However, Ziyue naturally did not care about these extraterritorial demons. He used it on a few extraterritorial demons and then shattered their souls and killed them all. I originally knew that this world was extremely vast, more than 10 times larger than the astral realm, and there were also many experts. But I didn't expect that the previous rumors were still underestimated. In this world, there were as many as 25 Severing Divinity realm experts. Over the years, there were even many top experts who had gone out to explore the outer realms or had not appeared for tens of thousands of years, causing a huge commotion. According to a preliminary estimate, there were at least 30 experts above the spirit severing stage. Among them, there were 2 who had reached the peak of the spirit severing stage and could be said to be supreme immortal level experts. One was the supreme celestial demon, who had been separated from the ancient times and suppressed the world. The other was the 10,000-hand celestial demon, who suddenly appeared 10,000 years ago. As soon as he appeared, he displayed tyrannical strength that was not weaker than the supreme celestial demon. As for the top experts in the middle and late stages of the spirit severing stage, there were even more. Ziyue was shocked. Thinking of the ancient desolate region, there was almost no spirit severing stage expert, so he deeply understood the gap between the two worlds. In addition, the extraterritorial demons have a strict hierarchy. Every strength realm has a strict division of strength and status. For example, demons equivalent to the Qi refinement stage are called demon servants here. They have no status and can be crushed and killed at will. Above them were the demonic soldiers that were comparable to the aperture enlightening realm. Above them were the demonic generals that were comparable to the deity realm, followed by the demonic commanders that were comparable to the golden core realm, and the demonic kings that were comparable to the primordial soul realm. As for the spirit-severing stage extraterritorial demons, they are usually called celestial demons or demon lords. Among them, celestial demons and demon lords are actually the lords of a region and occupy a large territory. Under normal circumstances, if they don't want to start a war, other celestial demons and demon lords won't easily step into the territory of another demon lord. The place where I am now is called the Divine Deer Mountain Range, which is the territory ruled by the Zhaoke demon lord. The land is vast, comparable to a region in the astral region. The Great Sun demon lord Zakin that I just killed was only one of the 28 demon generals under the Zhaoke demon lord. Moreover, he was one of the weakest of the 18 demon generals. In this world, communication is also very fast. The news of me appearing in this world and instantly killing the Great Sun demon lord Zakin has already been sent out by someone. I reckon that it won't be long before reinforcements arrive to surround and kill me. Some of the information was directly extracted from the memories of the extraterritorial demons by Ziyue, while others were based on his own analysis. He heaved a sigh of relief. Although he still didn't know how powerful the Zhaoke demon lord was in the spirit-severing stage, he knew that the only enemy he had to face in the short term was the Zhaoke demon lord. He instantly felt relieved. This was because he wasn't weak at all, especially after he created the Great Path unification technique and broke through the suppression of heaven and earth and the blockade of the Great Path. His strength had truly entered the spirit-severing stage. The Zhaoke demon lord's cultivation level might be higher than his, and his strength was greater, but he also had his own trump cards. He was confident that he wasn't weaker than the Zhaoke demon lord and could escape unscathed. Chapter 845. However, after killing so many experts in this world, I also feel a faint malice from the heavenly demon world's will of the Great Path. I presume that if I continue to kill wantonly, the will of the grand Tao of this world will definitely not let me go. It will send down divine punishment and execute restrictive methods, such as seal the heavens and decimate the earth. Ziyue raised his head and looked at the endless void. The will of the Great Path did not have self-awareness and only acted on instinct. However, as an outsider, Ziyue's destruction of this world was also under the surveillance of the will of the Great Path. If he caused too much damage and killed too many experts, he would naturally be stopped and punished by the will of the Great Path. But what do I have to fear? Ziyue smiled coldly and was not too worried. However, sealing the sky and decimating the earth and being plagued with bad luck was not a big deal to him. If the will of the Grand Tao really recognized him as a peerless enemy, it would cause countless experts in this world to take action against him. He estimated that the slaughter he would cause would definitely be incomparably huge. At the very least, he would have to slaughter all the demonic creatures in the Divine Deer Mountain Range. If that was really the case, how rich would Ziyue's spiritual energy be? 20 billion spiritual energy was not a problem at all. His strength would definitely be raised to a shocking level. By then, would he really be afraid of facing the heavenly demon world's experts? Of course, the prerequisite for all of this is that I can smoothly grow up. What I need to do now is to seize the origin energy of the astral world and ensure that I can seal the space passage and completely resolve the crisis in the ancient barren region. Only by doing this would I be able to relax and do my best to seize the soul. According to the memories I search from the heavenly demons' minds, the origin energy of the astral world is most likely in the hands of the Monolith Demon King, who is ranked second under the Zhaoke Demon Master. The Monolith Demon King is a peak primordial soul realm extraterrestrial demon and has been guarding the space passage. Ziyue muttered to himself. The Zhaoke Demon Master had a total of 28 primordial spirit realm demon kings under his command. Among them, The monolith Demon King was ranked second, which spoke volumes of his strength. The reason Ziyue determined that the astral source energy was in his hands was because he knew that in order to maintain the spatial passage, the astral source energy had to be added to it from time to time. The monolith Demon King was the most powerful being within a radius of 7,000 kilometers. Naturally, the astral origin energy would be the safest in his hands. When he thought of this, Ziyue narrowed his eyes and turned into a streak of light, heading straight for the monolith's area. The monolith Demon King might be incomparably powerful to the demon soldiers, demon generals, and even demon commanders, but in Ziyue's opinion, the monolith Demon King's strength was enough to sweep through everything unless the heralding sparrow demon lord personally came. Ziyue's speed was extremely fast. Even though the extraterritorial demon world was more than 10 times larger than the astral realm, and the corresponding gravitational environment was also more than 10 times stronger, the impact on Ziyue's speed was much smaller. Moreover, because this world was of a higher level, the corresponding degree of stability of the space correspondingly made it much more resistant to attacks. Therefore, even if Ziyue did not use the Great Path Coalescence technique, he could still unleash his full strength. Compared to the astral realm, his speed did not decrease but instead increased. Of course, if he used the Great Path Coalescence technique, Ziyue's speed would exceed that of the Supreme Realm and would naturally be faster than when he was in the extraterritorial demon world. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths. However, not long after Ziyue charged out, he saw thousands of demonic creatures of various strengths charging over in a grandiose manner. The one leading them was a terrifying demonic creature that was as large as a giant elephant. Its aura was extremely strong, and every move it made was filled with demonic flames. It was also an extraterritorial demon expert whose strength was comparable to that of a demon king at the primordial soul realm. However, it was not the rock demon king, but the demon king Wu Er, who was 800 miles away from here. It was at the advanced stage of the primordial soul realm and was not considered weak. Together with his 3,000 demon soldiers, 300 demon generals, and 30 demon commanders, they fought in a battle formation. Even a demon king at the pinnacle of the primordial soul realm would have to be cautious and fearful. Good timing. Ziyue did not care much. To him, as long as it was not a demon master at the spirit severing stage and above, the more demonic creatures there were, the better. He laughed loudly and rushed in front of the group of extraterritorial demons in an instant. Then, with a wave of his hand, a long staff turned into a giant pillar and smashed down fiercely. Arrogant. The demon king Wu Er roared, and his demon soldiers and demon generals instantly merged into one with him. Endless demonic aura filled the air and formed a huge black curtain that quickly met Ziyue's long staff. 72 staff strikes of the heavens. Ziyue's expression did not change, and the shadows of the staff smashed down. Bam! 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 The endless shadows of the staff smashed into the black curtain like rain hitting a pipa, producing a series of dull sounds that were dense and rapid. In an instant, the large formation that the demon King Wu Er had just formed was shattered. Countless demon soldiers and demon generals were also affected by the shadows of the staff and turned into puddles of meat paste. How is this possible? How can this person be so strong? The demon king Wu Er exclaimed, and he felt a chill in his heart. When he faced the endless shadows of the staff just now, the terrifying power kept stacking. If not for the many demon soldiers and demon generals transferring the damage, he would not have been able to withstand it. His first thought was to run away. This human expert was too strong and too terrifying. He estimated that the other party was not weaker than the Rock Demon King, and only the Rock Demon King nearby could deal with him. However, just as he had this thought, a cold voice sounded. 36 staff strikes of the heavens. Ziyue did not give the other party any time to react. After the heaven-shocking 72 staff strikes, it was the heaven-shocking 36 staff strikes. The heaven-shocking staff technique was a physical secret technique that kept stacking its power and the further it went, the more terrifying it became. Not only was the heaven-shocking 36 staff strikes much more powerful than before, but the speed at which they fell was also shockingly fast. Bam! 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 The demon generals and demon generals were almost instantly turned into meat paste upon contact. They were unable to resist at all. The demon king Wu Er used all his means, and even took out the precious treasure that the Zhaoke demon lord had given him to defend himself. But he could only barely resist. He was like a flower drifting in the wind and rain, about to be smashed to pieces at any time. Heaven-shocking 18 staff strikes. Heaven-shocking 9 staff strikes. Seeing this, Ziyue casually wielded the long staff, and the shadows of the staff fell with unstoppable force. Any demon that stood in the way of the shadows of the staff, no matter how big or how strong they were, could not resist at all. Even the demon King Wu Er was instantly crushed to death and turned into puddles of meat paste. A demon king comparable to the late primordial soul realm can't stop me. Ziyue snorted coldly. He reached out his hand and took a large amount of spoils of war. Then his body swayed, and he charged into the distance again. This time, I've also gained a lot of spiritual energy. As such, my soul power has once again surpassed the 1 billion mark, reaching over 170 billion. As he flew, Ziyue thought to himself and felt very satisfied. Other than in the ancient battlefield, he had not gained spiritual energy so quickly for a long time. Moreover, even in the ancient battlefield, the speed at which he gained spiritual energy was far slower than now. How long had it been since he entered this world? It had only been a few dozen breaths. However, the number of extraterrestrial demons that had died in his hands had already reached more than 10,000. If this continued, he estimated that he would be able to gather 4 billion points of spiritual energy in a short time and raise his immortal technique realm to the late primordial soul realm. However, after killing so many extraterrestrial demons, I can clearly feel that the great path will of this world is showing a strong malice towards me. If it happens again, I reckon that the punishment of the great path will soon descend upon me. Ziyue shook his head and sighed. However, he did not slow down at all. He looked in the direction of the demon king monolith without hesitation. Along the way, Bai Ziyue also saw some small magical creatures living there. It was just that these demonic creatures were mostly weak, and the strongest was only at the deity realm. When Bai Ziyue flew past, he merely used his domain to crush them, and they were all killed. As the saying went, those who were not of the same race were not of the same mind. Ziyue would not show any mercy. Soon, a huge mountain appeared in front of Ziyue. The entire mountain was huge, but there seemed to be a hollow space in the middle. Demonic roars could be heard from it. There was a large formation rising around it and covering the entire world. The magic rock cave. Bai Ziyue looked at the huge mountain as information about it flashed through his mind. The magic rock cave was the headquarters of the Demon King monolith. There were countless demons, and there were 2 demon kings guarding it. Its overall strength was not weaker than some of the top celestial sects in the firmament territory. Indeed, I can feel that the origin energy of the astral world is in this magic rock cave. The closer he got to the magic rock cave, the more Ziyue could feel an inexplicable attraction and a sense of closeness that came from the bottom of his heart. Naturally, he knew that this was the effect of the origin energy of the astral world. Seeing this, Ziyue made up his mind and no longer hesitated. He immediately used all of his battle strength, the heaven patching skill, the Great Path Dharma form, and the Great Path Coalescence technique. Then, he controlled the flying sword and infused it with the special primordial spirit power formed by the Great Path Coalescence technique. He then used the supreme Taoist skill, the Heart Sword art. Buzz! The flying sword instantly pierced through. The incomparably stable space seemed to be somewhat unable to withstand the might of his attack, and traces of ripples appeared. Then, the flying sword fiercely slammed into the magic rock cave. Chapter 846. There was a similar formation set up above the Devil's Den, and its defensive power was extremely strong. Even a full-powered attack from an early spirit severing stage expert would not be able to shatter it. However, when Ziyue's flying sword landed on the Devil's Den, the void collapsed. The formation's defensive power, which was strong enough to withstand a full-powered attack from an early spirit severing stage expert, was as thin as a piece of paper and was easily pierced through. The terrifying recoil from the formation immediately swept towards the Devil's Den like a tsunami. Large chunks of mountain rocks crumbled, and terrifying yuan power stirred. Any demonic creature, as long as they were not at the Golden Elixir stage and above, could not withstand the impact at all. They were instantly crushed to death. Spiritual energy plus 5, 4, 3, 2, 4, 3, plus 2, 3, 2, 2, 2, 0, 4, plus 5, 7, 2, 4, 5, plus 425,045. At the same time, Ziyue's spiritual energy increased tremendously with this wave of impact. The Devil's Den was the lair of the monolith Demon King, and there were definitely many demonic creatures inside. Not only were there countless demonic servants and soldiers, but there were also many demon generals and demon commanders. Ziyue only needed one strike to kill most of the demonic servants, soldiers, and generals with the help of the recoil from the formation. This saved him a lot of trouble. "Who is it? Do you have a death wish?" Cries of alarm could be heard rapidly. Immediately after, a large number of extraterrestrial demons of all shapes and sizes charged out from the formation. The leader of the group was a tall man who was over 90 feet tall. His exposed body was as black as a rock, shining with light. His every move was not slow and was filled with an oppressive force. He was the master of this place, the Rock Demon King. Apart from the Monolith Demon King, there were two other Demon Kings who were slightly smaller in size, but similarly possessed the strength of a late spirit severing stage expert. Soon, even more extraterritorial devils charged out of the devil cave of the boulder like streaks of light. Thousands of devil generals and hundreds of devil marshals. Just their auras were connected, and it was like a brilliant heavenly might that caused one's heart to tremble. However, such a threatening aura could not threaten Ziyue. Ziyue looked at the effect of his sword and smiled coldly. He muttered, "Who am I?" "The person who will kill you." Then, without any hesitation, he charged out in a flash. The moment he charged out, a flying sword had already turned into flowing light and pierced out. At the same time, a beam of divine light swept across the area like a cattail leaf fan without a sound or presence. The flying sword pierced through the air with extreme speed, almost instantly reaching the front of the Monolith Demon King. "Kill me? You?" The Monolith Demon King let out a muffled snort. As the second most powerful Demon King under the Zhaokei Demon King, his strength was naturally not weak. Perhaps he was slightly lacking in offensive power and could not compare to the 8 evil Demon Kings who were ranked first. But in terms of defensive power, he was undeniably the best after the Zhaokei Demon King. Even the 8 evil Demon Kings, whose attack power had already reached the level of the Spirit Severing stage, surpassing that of the Astral Boundary's pinnacle stage masters, would need at least 10 attacks to shatter his defense and injure his body. Not to mention this foreign cultivator, who looked like he was only at the mid-Spirit Severing stage. His reputation as the Monolith Demon King wasn't just for show. Of course, he was confident, but he would not underestimate Ziyue. After all, Ziyue had truly shattered his defensive array. Perhaps he had used some sort of secret treasure, but it was likely that Ziyue possessed a certain level of strength and was not weak. Therefore, when he took out a round plate, he also used his strongest defensive technique, the Monolith's Wall. Layers of monolith surrounded him like a stone wall. The moment he used the Monolith's Wall, Ziyue's flying sword had already pierced through the round plate like a hot knife through butter. It crashed heavily into the Monolith's Wall. Boom! After a muffled sound, the flying sword only paused for a moment before completely piercing through the Monolith's Wall. Then, it pierced into the Monolith Demon King's body. The terrifying, destructive power of the heart sword quickly destroyed his flesh, blood, vitality, and the core of his soul. Instantly, the monolith demon king died. What? How is this possible? The monolith demon king is dead. Countless extraterrestrial demons in the surroundings were dumbfounded. They could not believe their eyes. The monolith demon king was almost invincible in their eyes. The monolith demon king was highly regarded and admired by the Zhaoke demon king. He said that even demon kings at the spirit-severing stage could rarely break through his defenses. But he died just like that. He died at the hands of this seemingly ordinary expert from another world who was far weaker than the monolith demon king. Countless extraterrestrial demons were shocked, and even horrified. However, Ziyue's attack did not end there. The flying sword rushed out. After killing the monolith demon king, its remaining power did not decrease. With a slight turn, it rushed to the front of another extraterrestrial demon at the advanced stage of the primordial spirit realm and stabbed viciously. Chi, another demon king level powerhouse, fell on the spot. At the same time, the magnetic divine light that Ziyue had shot out earlier descended like a raging storm and swept toward the other extraterrestrial demons. The first to bear the brunt was the last remaining demon king. Quick, form a formation with me. No, that extraterrestrial demon still wanted to struggle and resist. He even gathered many of his subordinates to resist. However, Ziyue's magnetic divine light was far inferior to the heart sword technique in terms of attack power, exquisiteness, and even power. However, with Ziyue's current strength, especially after using the Great Tao Coalescence technique, the power of the primordial spirit, the power of the physical body, and the power of the soul is one. Every move of his contained great power. As a result, the might of the great essence-fused divine light was far more terrifying than when he had unleashed it before. It had also surpassed the Lammeter level and truly reached the severed divinity level. Although the extraterrestrial demon was powerful and his defense was also very shocking because he was of the same race as the monolith demon king, he was still instantly washed away by the divine light and turned into dust. The countless demon commanders and demon generals behind him naturally could not withstand the power of the divine light. Their flesh and blood melted in an instant, and they were completely annihilated. I haven't even done anything, and all of you have already fallen? Ziyue looked at the countless extraterrestrial demons on the ground who were fleeing in all directions in fear. He laughed softly and then struck out with his palm. Wong, wong, wong. His palm continued to expand, as if it could destroy the heavens and the earth, until it completely enveloped the entire Devil's Cave of Rocks. Terrifying origin energy fluctuations spread out. The grass and trees were scattered, the earth shook, and all kinds of creatures cried out in fear as if a great disaster was imminent. Then, Ziyue's expression was calm. He flipped his palm and pressed it down. Great immortal martial handprint. He pressed it down directly. Rumble. Instantly, the entire Devil's Cave of Rocks was completely destroyed, forming a huge handprint that was at least 100 feet deep. Ziyue's palm also took advantage of the momentum to completely exterminate almost all of the demons in the Devil's Cave of Rocks. The Devil's Cave of Rocks would no longer exist in this world. This wave of attacks killed quite a lot of extraterrestrial demons. 3 demon kings, more than 100 demon commanders, more than 1,500 demon generals, and hundreds of thousands of demon servants and demon soldiers. Although the low-level demon servants and demon soldiers didn't give me a lot of spiritual energy, there were so many of them. In total, they gave me a total of 5 billion spiritual energy points. In addition to the 2 billion spiritual energy points that I originally had, I have 7 billion spiritual energy points. Ziyue stood in the void and looked at the attribute panel. He felt a wave of satisfaction in his heart. This amount of spiritual energy had already reached a limit that he had never reached before. With such a huge amount of spiritual energy around him, he couldn't help but feel a sense of security that he had never felt before. This was especially important in this alternate world where everyone was his enemy. However, it's still not enough. 2. 7 billion spiritual energy points aren't enough for me to make another breakthrough in my strength. Ziyue took a deep breath. Naturally, he wasn't satisfied. His goal was 4 billion, 8 billion, or even 20 billion spiritual energy points. However, 7 billion was still far from his goal. Not good. At this moment, Ziyue's expression changed. He suddenly raised his head and looked at the void. Above the void, the will of the great path suddenly froze. Then, a black light turned into a flowing light and quickly descended, landing on Ziyue's body. It was so fast that it was impossible to dodge. The black light directly merged into Ziyue's body and disappeared without a trace. The moment the black light entered his body, Ziyue immediately felt that a special barrier had formed between him and this world. Even though he could clearly feel the surrounding qi of heaven and earth and feel the vitality of the qi of heaven and earth, he couldn't absorb it at all, let alone refine it and turn it into his own strength. Sealing heaven and earth. Under the situation where I killed so many extraterrestrial demons, the will of the great path of this world finally couldn't take it anymore. It sent down a divine punishment on me and used the sealing heaven and earth technique, making me completely lose the possibility of recovering my spiritual energy. I can only rely on natural treasures or miraculous pills to recover my strength. Also, it's worth mentioning that even the rules of the great path of this world and the paths of the great path of heaven and earth have been completely obscured like a fog. They've become mysterious and invisible. Ziyue's face darkened. Although he had already expected that the will of the great path of the extraterrestrial demons would definitely not tolerate his one slaughter, he still felt a wave of discomfort when the divine punishment truly descended. Then, he seemed to have thought of something. With a thought, he used up a bit of his spiritual energy and immediately felt the power of his spiritual energy in his body recover rapidly. In the blink of an eye, he had recovered to the level of complete peak. Fortunately, my spiritual energy has recovered and I haven't been restricted. This way, the power of my spiritual energy will be endless. The sealing heaven and earth technique can't do anything to me. Ziyue heaved a long sigh of relief. He quickly put aside his unhappiness and waved his hand, hurriedly collecting the countless spoils of war. In particular, Ziyue quickly took out an item from the storage pouch of the Monolith Demon King. It was a bronze cauldron with 3 legs and 4 sides. On each side, there was a lifelike image of a divine beast. Within the cauldron, there were balls of ethereal spiritual qi. The ethereal spiritual qi was the origin energy of the great path of the star boundary. It was extremely mysterious and gave Ziyue a feeling of extreme intimacy. Moreover, because Ziyue was also from the star boundary, he was naturally compatible with the origin energy of the great path. Instinctively, he developed the thought of devouring and refining the origin energy of the great path. However, even though refining the origin energy of the great path would allow Ziyue's strength to improve in a short period of time and speed up his cultivation, he still resisted the urge. With a flip of his hand, he kept the bronze cauldron that carried the origin energy of the great path. This was because he knew that once he refined the origin energy of the great path, his strength would increase greatly in a short period of time and speed up his cultivation. However, correspondingly, he would be restricted to the star boundary for the rest of his life and would not be able to transcend. His strength could only increase as the origin energy of the star boundary strengthened. From then on, he would lose the possibility of advancing to the separating divinity stage, the path integration stage, or even higher realms. Only by continuously devouring the origin energy of the great path of the surrounding stars and continuously strengthening the origin energy of the star boundary could his strength increase. Although the title of Master of the Star Boundary sounded nice, a Master of the Star Boundary whose strength was limited to the ultimate primordial soul stage would not be valued by others. This was also why there was no lack of strong cultivators in the star boundary who had broken through to the separating divinity stage, but none of them had embarked on the path of refining the origin energy of the star boundary and becoming the master of the star boundary. Compared to the endless sea of stars, the star boundary was too small, and the restrictions on cultivators were too great. If I were a cultivator who had no aspirations and only wanted to live a long life, refining the origin energy of the star boundary and becoming the master of the star boundary would indeed be a choice. After all, once I became the master of the star boundary, my lifespan would also increase correspondingly. I would be able to live for at least one era, 129,600 years. However, with the ability of my attribute panel, the improvement of my strength would be the fastest. A separating divinity stage cultivator would have a lifespan of 60,000 years, and a path integration stage cultivator would have a lifespan of 1 yuan. And I believe that with the ability of my attribute panel, it would not take too long for me to advance to the path integration stage. Ziyue's Dao heart was firm and naturally would not compromise easily. Then, with a sway of his body, he quickly charged in another direction. Now that the origin energy of the star boundary's great path had been taken away by him, the main goal of entering the extraterrestrial demon world this time had been achieved. Naturally, he hoped to kill as many extraterrestrial demons as possible to greatly increase his spirit energy. At this moment, he had completely treated the extraterrestrial demon world as his hunting ground, and the countless powerful and strange extraterrestrial demons were his prey. He was very much looking forward to the time when his spirit energy increased to 4 or 8 billion, and when his immortal technique realm advanced to the late primordial soul stage or the peak primordial soul stage. How much would his strength soar? At the same time, he was also very much looking forward to the time when he perfected the heaven-startling 3-rod strikes and the heaven-startling single-rod strike. How shocking would the power of the heaven-startling staff technique be? Chapter 847. Given by Ziyue's current strength, he was able to travel 1,000 miles in an instant at an extremely fast speed. In just a few seconds, he had arrived at another Devil's Denver. This Devil's Den was the lair of Zhang Demon King from the memories of the soul-searching Demon General. Zhang Demon King was slightly weaker than the Monolith Demon King. He was ranked 9th among the 28 Demon Kings under the Zhaoke Demon King, so he was not weak either. However, even the Monolith Demon King, who had always been known for his strong defense, could not withstand a single blow from Ziyue, let alone Zhang Demon King. After 60 breaths, Zhang Ji's den had been destroyed. Almost 100,000 extraterrestrial demons had died. Ziyue did not linger and rushed to the next battlefield. At this moment, Bai Ziyue was like the god of death descending to the world. He attacked without any scruples. Along the way, he did not hesitate at all. Any extraterrestrial demon that he saw would be killed. Kill, kill, kill. If a human blocked his way, he would kill a god. If a god blocked his way, he would kill a god. Correspondingly, Ziyue's spiritual energy was also rapidly increasing. 2. 7 billion, 3 billion, 3. 3 billion, 3. 5 billion. Apart from the spiritual energy, Ziyue's Kama Golden Pagoda contained countless demonic dharma treasures, various demonic spiritual stones, demonic spiritual materials. It was also worth mentioning that Zhang Demon King had obtained a demonic treasure battle weapon that was comparable to a spiritual treasure. It was a spear that was a low-grade devil artifact. It was completely pitch black, and only the tip of the spear revealed a trace of dark red. It was gorgeous and resplendent, and it naturally carried a strand of horrifying energy. This spear was obviously Zhang Demon King's prized treasure. Even his name was similar to it. However, even with the demonic treasure, he could only exert the power of an ultimate primordial spirit realm cultivator at most. How could he be a match for Ziyue? He was easily killed. After killing Zhang Demon King, Ziyue did not linger for long. He quickly rushed to the next battlefield. In an incomparably huge mountain range, there was an inconceivably tall mountain peak that seemed to pierce straight into the sky. At the top of the mountain, there was a huge and magnificent hall. Although the finer details of the hall were a little rough, it looked very solemn and majestic. This was the main peak of the Divine Deer Mountain Range, the Divine Deer Peak. This palace was known as the Demon Master Palace. It was the king of the Divine Deer Mountain Range, Zhao Ke Demon Master. The Zhao Ke Demon Master was extremely powerful. He could be ranked in the top 10 in the entire extraterritorial demon world. He was the undisputed king of the Divine Deer Mountain Range. He had even defeated 2 spirit-severing stage demon masters by himself. Hua! Suddenly, a tall figure with horns on his head rushed to a quiet room. He bowed respectfully and said, "Demon Master, news just came from the Divine Soul Palace. Demon King Zakin and Demon King Monolith have just died." What? Suddenly, the door of the quiet room opened. A burly figure with a long nose and mouth like an eagle rushed out. His eyes were wide open. Before they fell, they sent out a distress signal. They all said that a powerful being from the astral world had crossed over. That person trembled and hurriedly replied in fear. A powerful being from the astral world crossed over? At present, the spatial passageway can only allow mid-golden core cultivators to enter and exit normally. Our spatial passageway has been sealed by a formation set up by the otherworldly experts on the other side. At most, it can only allow devil soldiers to enter. What kind of powerful being from the astral world could cross over and have the power to kill Demon King Zakin and Demon King Monolith? Zhao Ke, Demon Master, asked with a cold expression. I don't know. However, from the information they sent before they died, the cultivator from the astral world who crossed over this time is not weak. According to what they said, he is at the primordial spirit realm intermediate stage. The subordinate shook his head at first, then hurriedly explained. He is only at the primordial spirit realm intermediate stage, but he killed Demon King Zakin and Demon King Monolith. And according to what you said, he is alone. Zakin is fine, but that Demon King Monolith is comparable to a Demon King at the pinnacle of the primordial spirit realm. His defensive power is second to none among the Demon Kings. Zhao Ke, Demon Master, frowned. He was naturally aware of the strength of his second most powerful subordinate, the Demon King Monolith. Even he could not help but admire the strength of the Demon King Monolith's defensive power. But in the end, such a powerful being was killed by a primordial spirit realm intermediate stage cultivator? Reporting, Demon Master. We just received news that Demon King Zhangge is also dead. Just at this moment, another subordinate rushed in and said with a panicked expression, Demon King Zakin, Demon King Monolith, and then Demon King Zhangge. Not good. Ring the war soul bell. Everyone, follow me to meet the enemy. As Zhao Ke, Demon Master, analyzed, he quickly sensed the path that the newcomers had taken. His expression changed immediately, and he no longer dared to underestimate the so-called powerful beings of the astral realm. With a low roar, he turned into a ray of flowing light and rushed in a certain direction. As he shouted, the entire Demon Master Palace began to move. The 8 Demon Kings, 300 Demon Commanders, 5,000 Demon Generals, and 100,000 Demon Soldiers who had stayed behind to guard the Demon Master Palace quickly gathered and rushed out on their warships. The number of spiritual energy has finally exceeded 4 billion. To be exact, it is 32 billion points. Another small gathering point of extraterrestrial demons had been destroyed by him. Ziyue looked at his attribute panel and could not help but feel excited. For 3 billion points of spiritual energy was naturally still a long way from his ultimate goal of 20 billion. But it was already enough to raise his immortal techniques from the primordial spirit realm intermediate stage to the primordial spirit realm advanced stage. This would allow his strength to soar once again. Thinking of this, he no longer hesitated. By spending 97 billion points of spiritual energy, I can raise the grand primordial spirit scripture from small mastery to great mastery. Raising the grand primordial spirit scripture from small mastery to great mastery is actually raising my immortal techniques from the primordial spirit realm intermediate stage to the primordial spirit realm advanced stage. Because of my previous cultivation, my immortal spell realm has improved to a certain extent, so the amount of soul energy consumed has been saved by 30 million units. However, 97 billion points of spiritual energy is really a lot of spiritual energy. This information flashed through Zue's mind. Although he was mentally prepared, it still pained him to expend such a huge amount of spiritual energy. You can't catch the wolf without sacrificing the child. Although 4 billion points of spiritual energy is a lot, it is relatively easy to obtain. Moreover, it can greatly increase my strength, especially in this extraterrestrial demon world. The stronger I am, the better my ability to protect myself, and the faster I can accumulate spiritual energy. If my strength really reaches the primordial spirit realm pinnacle, perhaps even the supreme demon at the spirit severing stage will be able to fight him. It's not a loss. Zue's expression hardened, and he finally chose to raise his spiritual energy. Raise. Instantly, Zue felt a jolt in his mind, and the golden primordial spirit power in his body quickly circulated through the grand primordial spirit scripture. The grand primordial spirit scripture was created by Zue, and it was completely compatible with his primordial spirit and physical body. It was a cultivation technique that could complement and enhance each other. As endless spiritual energy was consumed, the grand primordial spirit scripture circulated rapidly, and his physical body and primordial spirit immediately began to improve. Not only did the golden light of his primordial spirit continue to strengthen, but even the strength of his physical body, as well as the deeper layers of his physical body particles, continued to strengthen. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths, after his physical body and primordial spirit had both been raised to a certain limit. Boom! It was as if a certain shackle had been broken, and his heart had been unlocked. A special aura that was far more powerful than before involuntarily emitted from Zue's body. Advanced primordial spirit realm. Zue's mind was shaken, and a sense of joy emerged from within. This feeling of a breakthrough in his cultivation realm and a surge in his strength was indeed intoxicating, and it made him extremely happy. My strength has increased by a lot compared to before. If I was still in the astral world, perhaps with my current strength, I would not even need to use the great Tao coalescence technique to break the suppression of the heavens and earth and the seal of the great Tao, and strike an attack that exceeds the level of the supreme realm, breaking all techniques with one strike. This is the true meaning of breaking all techniques with one strike. Zue muttered and sighed, constantly comparing the difference between his cultivation realm before and after. When I was at the intermediate primordial spirit realm, with the help of the great Tao coalescence technique, my strength should have exceeded that of an initial spirit severing stage expert, and should not be weaker than an intermediate spirit severing stage expert. Now that my cultivation realm has soared and reached the advanced primordial spirit realm, the corresponding combat strength has also increased greatly. Perhaps I really have the strength to compete with an advanced spirit severing stage expert? He guessed, and his heart could not help but surge. Although he had not really seen an advanced spirit severing stage expert make a move, and it was not easy for him to guess the true strength of such an expert, he did not belittle himself. He was confident that even if his strength was slightly weaker than such an existence, it was definitely not impossible for him to fight back. With a smile on his face, Zue took a step forward and quickly rushed to his next target. Buzz. He used the instant 1,000 miles. His physical body seemed to have penetrated the void and broken through the barrier of the heavens and earth. At this moment, he actually penetrated the spatial barrier and entered the depths of space. Then, in the next moment, he stepped out of another space and appeared 3,000 miles away. Crossing 3,000 miles with one step, Zue was shocked. He knew that after his strength and immortal technique improved, he would also be able to cross 1,000 miles in an instant, and his speed would definitely soar a lot compared to before. However, he was still a little surprised that his speed had increased by 3 times. Moreover, when I used the instant 1,000 miles, I could clearly feel that my physical body was in harmony with the entire world. It was as if the particles of my physical body had completely merged with the world and dispersed in an instant. Then, they suddenly gathered 3,000 miles away. A glimmer of light flashed in Ziyu's eyes, and he had a hint of understanding. That's right. Although my great primordial spirit scripture is named after the great primordial spirit, its fundamental principle is that the physical body and the primordial spirit complement each other and improve together. When the physical body and the primordial spirit have both improved to a certain level, it is inevitable that they will walk towards 2 different development situations. One is to divide and improve. The physical body is the physical body, and the primordial spirit is the primordial spirit. The connection between the two is extremely small. However, due to the uncoordinated development of this kind of cultivation path, when ordinary cultivators advanced to the spirit severing stage, in order not to burst their physical body, they would often split their primordial spirit into 2 or 4. This was also the origin of the spirit severing stage. The other direction of development was to walk towards integration. The physical body and the primordial spirit would fuse into one. In this way, the particles of the physical body and the primordial spirit would be closely combined and regenerate the creation. Naturally, it will be able to display more mysteries and produce more changes. Because my physique is too strong, my primordial spirit is also far superior to ordinary cultivators of the same level. When I first created my cultivation method, I instinctively chose the cultivation direction of the physical body and the primordial spirit. Therefore, when my cultivation realm advanced to the late stage of the primordial spirit realm, my primordial spirit and physical body could not help but display this characteristic, causing the 2 forces to combine. This resulted in the phenomenon of the physical body scattering and then combining. Ziyu took a deep breath. In fact, he was not sure whether his cultivation path was right or wrong. However, cultivators of the immortal cultivation methods, especially those like him who created their own cultivation methods and groped their way forward, had to follow their hearts in understanding the path ahead. Although all of this was unknown and mysterious. However, it was also because of this that it was even more challenging. The cultivation path of the predecessors might not be suitable for him, and it might not necessarily be right. At least, after the spirit severing stage, the next realm is the Tao integration stage. From the looks of it, the fusion of the primordial spirit and the physical body may be the direction that cultivators should take in the future. If this is the case, then the spirit severing stage is actually an extra realm, or perhaps the Tao integration stage had other mysteries to it. The Tao integration stage not only fuses the physical body and the primordial spirit, but also the Tao of the laws of heaven and earth. At this moment, Ziyu's thoughts churned violently. Endless light of wisdom emerged, and his understanding and exploration of heaven and earth inexplicably deepened countless times. Even at this moment, he was still under the divine punishment of sealing the sky and decimating the earth by the will of the great Tao of the extraterritorial demon world. However, he still felt a trace of the true essence of the great Tao and understood many mysteries of heaven and earth. I see. Sealing the earth and decimating the earth only sealed the rules of the great Tao of the extraterritorial demon world and the aura of the great Tao. However, what I have comprehended at this moment is indeed the laws of the universe. The great Tao that the endless stars and worlds follow is higher than the great Tao of the extraterritorial demon world. It is one of the supreme laws, and naturally, it is not something that the will of the great Tao of the extraterritorial demon world can seal. Dua suddenly laughed heartily, revealing an extremely carefree expression. A trace of satisfaction appeared in his heart. It was the fearlessness of knowing the great Tao in the morning and dying in the evening. After a while, he came back to his senses and found himself in another demon's den. He did not care at all which demon's den he was in at this moment belonged to which demon king, how strong the other party was, and how many demon servants, demon soldiers, and demon generals the other party had. Looking at the demon's den from afar, he just raised his hand and pressed it down. Rumble. Chapter 848. Another devil's den was destroyed by him with one hand. Even the devil king-level experts in the devil's den could not withstand the power of Zue's palm at all. They were blown up and turned into ashes. The strength of the experts in this devil's den is relatively low. It only increased the number of my spiritual energy by 800 million. However, even so, my soul energy has soared once again. It has increased to 1 billion points. Zue sighed. He reached out and took out a large number of spoils of war. However, Zue's expression changed again soon. In the void, the wind and clouds changed. It was as if there was a glorious, majestic, and supreme will that suddenly descended. Then, there was a strong aura that emitted endless black light. It instantly descended and rushed toward Zue. The will of the great path of the extraterritorial demon realm has descended again. Zue's eyes widened. He subconsciously used 1,000 miles in an instant. His body suddenly dissipated and turned into countless particles of flesh and blood that directly penetrated into the depths of space. Whoosh! When Zue appeared again, he was already 3,000 miles away. However, when his figure appeared again, his expression was extremely unsightly. My strength is still not enough. Why use 1,000 miles in an instant? I could split my body and enter the depths of space. However, I still did not leave this world. Naturally, it was difficult to avoid the divine punishment of the will of the great path. This time, the divine punishment that the will of the great path has given me is bad luck. In other words, as long as I am in this world, even if I do not move, I will encounter all kinds of accidents and various dangers will befall me. Zue thought to himself and could not help but frown. Obviously, his continuous killing had finally angered the will of the great path of the extraterritorial demon realm again. It had given him the second divine punishment. If he hadn't guessed wrongly, then the third divine punishment would descend very soon if he continued to act wantonly against the beings of the extraterrestrial devil world. As for the third divine punishment, it was called enemies of the entire world. In other words, as long as Zue was still in this world, no matter what kind of creatures from the heavenly devil world saw him, they would instinctively produce killing intent and attack him. The top experts of this world would instinctively sense the existence of an other realm fiend celestial like him and hunt him down. Once he was killed, it would absolutely be a matter of great virtue, and he would obtain the favor of the Grand Tao will, causing boundless auspicious signs and rewards to descend. One had to know that there were many top experts in this world. There was no lack of immortal path experts at the late stage of the spirit-severing realm and the peak of the spirit-severing realm. Therefore, Zue had already made up his mind. Before the third god's punishment descended, he had to earn a large amount of spiritual energy. Once the third god's punishment descended, he had to return to the astral boundary immediately. With that in mind, Zue didn't really care about the second divine punishment. To ordinary people or low-level cultivators, this bad luck might have a huge impact, but to him, it was nothing. This was because his strength was too strong, and he was already at the top level of this world. In the face of absolute strength, naturally many things were insignificant, and the impact on him was relatively small. Thinking of this, Zue relaxed and was about to take a step forward. Sizzle. At this moment, a spatial crack suddenly appeared in front of Zue. Zue crashed into it. With the current strength of Zue's physical body, coupled with the fact that he was in the heavenly devil world, he was very careful. He maintained the true dragon mysterious armor technique at all times to guard against possible dangers. Therefore, the spatial crack didn't pose much of a threat to him, and it only slightly increased his consumption. However, in this place where the sky was clear and there was no wind or waves, the probability of a spatial crack suddenly appearing was actually extremely small. It could be said that the probability was 1 in a million, 10 million, or even 1 in a billion. In the end, it was this small and almost impossible probability that appeared in front of Zio. Is this what it means to be plagued with bad luck? Bumping into walls when walking on the road? Getting stuck between my teeth when drinking cold water? Why would there be thunder and lightning when I sleep? Ziyue suddenly realized that he had been too optimistic. If this were to happen suddenly during a battle, it would definitely affect his ability to unleash his full strength. It seems that I still have to be more careful from now on. Ziyue thought silently. His body moved, and he turned into a streak of flowing light. Then, he appeared outside another Devil's Den. This Devil's Den seemed to be even bigger than the Devil's Den of the Boulder Demon King. There were countless heavenly devils inside, and there were even more demon generals and demon commanders. It was also worth mentioning that Ziyue's consecutive attacks had probably attracted the attention of the experts in this Devil's Den. Many heavenly devils in this Devil's Den were on high alert, and they each stood at the base of the Devil's Den's great formation. If I remember correctly, this should be the Devil's Den of the 8 Evil Demon King, who is ranked first among the 28 Demon Kings under the Zhaoke Demon Master. Ziyue looked down at the scene below. This thought flashed through his mind, but he did not pay too much attention to it. A palm slowly stretched out. A terrifying power spread out. In an instant, an incomparably huge palm formed between heaven and earth, and it seemed to be able to destroy everything. He's here. That human expert from the astral boundary is here. Quick, get ready. Work together. Operate the great formation to the maximum. Don't worry, we've already prepared. This person is too arrogant. Does he think that our 8 Evil Demon Den is as weak as the other Devil's Dens? The great defensive formation of our 8 Evil Demon Den was set up by the Zhaoke Demon Master when the Zhaoke Demon Master invited the 6th grade formation master, Demon Master Qian, as a guest. It's a true 6th grade great formation. Even if a Demon Master level expert were to attack, he would not be able to break it in a short time. Not to mention, we 8 Evil Demon Kings are the undisputed number 1 experts under the Zhaoke Demon Master. Our battle prowess is not weaker than some experts who have just entered the Demon Master level. This time, don't be fooled by this person's ferocity. He will definitely be defeated by us 8 Evil Demon Kings. Don't underestimate this person. You should know that the Monolith Demon King and Zhanga Demon King both died at his hands. It's said that although his cultivation level is not high, his battle prowess is definitely not weaker than us 8 Evil Demon Kings. There was a lot of discussion in the 8 Evil Demon Den. There were heavenly devils who were confident, but there were also other heavenly devils who were cautious. They all saw this as a great crisis. In fact, even the 8 Evil Demon Kings were feeling very nervous. As the number 1 expert among the 28 Evil Demon Kings in the Divine Deer Mountain Range, the Zhaoke Demon Master could be said to be second only to 1 Demon King and above millions of demons. The information he knew was naturally much better than the others. He knew very well that although this astral world expert's cultivation level was not high and was even lower than his battle prowess was definitely above his. After all, he was an expert who had fought with the Monolith Demon King many times. The last time they fought was half a year ago. Although he was able to defeat the Monolith Demon King, it was almost impossible for him to completely kill the Monolith Demon King. This was because the Monolith Demon King's defense was too strong. He could only injure the Monolith Demon King with all his techniques. However, even the Monolith Demon King with unparalleled defense had fallen at the hands of this person. It was obvious that this person's offensive techniques were definitely above his own. In addition, this person had destroyed several demon dens and killed countless experts. He was naturally aware of the gap between him and this person. Perhaps only the Zhaoke Demon Master himself would have a chance of completely killing this person. I can only hope that the Zhaoke Demon Master can come to my rescue as soon as possible. Otherwise, even with the defense of this Grade 6 formation, I'm not confident that I can hold on for long. The 8 evil demon kings were secretly anxious, and a strong sense of fear was faintly born in their hearts. Suddenly, his expression changed. Almost immediately, he noticed that a seemingly thin and small figure had suddenly appeared outside the formation. That astral world human expert is here? The thought flashed through his mind, and he immediately roared. Quick, raise the formation and stop him. Demonic light instantly filled the demon Denver. A huge defensive barrier that resembled a tortoise shell appeared between heaven and earth, completely enveloping the entire demon Denver. The 8 evil demon kings secretly held a talisman in their hands. Their expressions were dark and vicious. I've already sent the news of this human expert's arrival to the Zhaoke Demon Master. Given his speed, he'll need at least 10 breaths of time to rush here from the Demon Master Palace at full speed. I estimate that this Grade 6 formation can at most block this human expert for 6 breaths of time, so I'll need to hold on for at least 4 breaths of time. The 8 evil demon kings' thoughts spun quickly. In fact, he felt powerless. He had already determined that Ziyue's battle strength was at least at the level of a demon master. Moreover, he could be considered a powerhouse at the demon master level. Even if he was not weak and his attacks were at the level of a demon master, he was not a true demon master. Naturally, he could not block the attack of such a powerhouse. Not to mention 4 breaths, even 3 breaths or 2 breaths was an extremely difficult task for him. The only thing I can do now is to use this Void Shift Talisman. Once I feel that I can't hold on any longer, I'll immediately use this Void Shift Talisman to escape. As for the lives of my subordinates, I'm about to lose my own life. Why would I care about anything else? The 8 evil demon kings glanced at his subordinates. Even if their gazes were filled with admiration and fanaticism, seeing him as their life goal, and some of them were even filled with love and respect for him, his heart was still extremely cold. True martial great palm fall. Ziyue raised his hand and pressed it down fiercely. Rumble. The formation rose, releasing a great brilliance. The formation below almost instantly dimmed, and its defensive power was reduced by at least 30%. However, Ziyue's attack did not shatter the formation in the end. He blocked it. Sure enough, although this person is strong, our 8 evil demon Lair's Mountain Protection Formation is a Grade 6 formation. It's enough to block the attack of a demon master. He alone won't be enough. Cheers were heard from the nests of the 8 evils. Obviously, Ziyue's failure had greatly boosted their confidence. They hurriedly used all their strength to maintain the formation's operation. This formation is quite exquisite. It's actually a rare Grade 6 formation. Ziyue raised his eyebrows in surprise, but his face was still as calm as before. Although he had noticed the exquisiteness of this formation, he did not realize it immediately. This formation was a Grade 6 formation. At the beginning, he had casually used his palm to test it. Even with his strength and means, the power of this casual palm was actually unparalleled. It was not weaker than the full blow of an immortal Dao expert at the initial stage of the spirit severing realm. However, it was still difficult to break this Grade 6 formation in the first place. In that case, I'll be more serious. Ziyue glanced indifferently at the excited extraterrestrial demons in the formation. With a thought, a flying sword immediately rushed out. Chi, the Great Path Coalescence technique, circulated. Under the combination of the 3 forces, a unique golden power suddenly poured into the flying sword. Heart Sword Technique. Puff. The void opened, but Ziyue's natal flying sword had already disappeared in the next moment. In the next moment, the flying sword had already arrived outside the formation and stabbed fiercely. Rumble. The formation operated to the extreme, but it dimmed in an instant. Then, with a pop, the formation broke. Puff, puff, puff. At the moment when the formation broke, countless extraterrestrial demons in the formation immediately suffered from the formation's backlash. The higher the level of the formation, the greater the lethality of the backlash. Under the terrifying backlash, the demon generals and demon soldiers at the nodes of the formation were instantly annihilated, and their flesh and blood turned into powder. The earth chi rolled, and the demon chi shook. Above the eight evils lair, the ground collapsed as if doomsday had arrived. Even the surrounding houses and buildings and the extraterrestrial demons outside the nodes of the formation were affected. They were either seriously injured or directly killed. Almost none of the extraterrestrial demons were unharmed. What? How is this possible? Just one sword. One sword broke the mountain guarding formation? Inside the eight evils lair, countless extraterrestrial demons were stunned. They were terrified and desperate. I thought it would take him at least 6 breaths to break the 6th grade formation outside, but it only took him 3 breaths. Moreover, it's obvious that his first attack was just a test. The real effect came in the second attack. However, the second attack directly shattered the formation. Run, run, run. I have to run. Otherwise, with the way this astral boundary expert acts, how can I still be alive? The 8 evil demon kings were also terrified. They were terrified and wanted to escape immediately. Without any hesitation, they flipped their hands and activated the void transference talisman. You're courting death. Stop. Right at this moment, a thunderous roar was heard, following which a figure could be seen dashing over like a streak of light from afar. Zhaoke Demon Master. It's Zhaoke Demon Master. The 8 evil demon kings' eyes lit up when they saw this. They heaved a long sigh of relief. If Zhaoke Demon Master had arrived a moment later, they would have activated the void transference talisman to escape. Chapter 849. The Void Teleportation Talisman was a supreme talisman that could allow one to travel 30,000 miles. It was extremely precious and was even more valuable than some ordinary demonic treasures. When he first obtained the Void Teleportation Talisman, he had spent a lot of effort and paid a huge price. Now that the Zhaoke Demon Master had arrived, his crisis had been resolved. Naturally, he would be able to keep the Void Teleportation Talisman. This was a joyous occasion for him. The Zhaoke Demon Master is here. We're saved. That's great. The human expert from the astral realm is dead meat. Countless extraterrestrial demons were overjoyed when they saw this. They were extremely excited. Previously, Ziyue had destroyed the rank 6 formation with one blow, causing the formation to backfire and killing many extraterrestrial demons. The scene was too frightening and terrifying. Almost all of the extraterrestrial demons were in despair. They did not even have the heart to fight back. Now, the Zhaoke Demon Master had arrived. Although his voice was sharp and piercing, causing the demonic servants and demonic soldiers' eardrums to vibrate and almost fainted, it was as if they had heard the voice of a deity. They were all excited. The Zhaoke Demon Master? He's finally here? Ziyue naturally noticed that there was a terrifying figure in the distance. He was charging towards him like a bolt of lightning. However, he did not look surprised at all. He was calm and composed, as if he did not care at all. However, you can't stop me. Ziyue sneered and did not waste any time. With a thought, he used the Great Path Coalescence technique. Terrifying origin energy instantly poured into the flying sword. Chi! Instantly, the flying sword pierced through the air and disappeared. It was as if it did not exist in this world. It went straight into the depths of the void. Apart from the Zhaoke Demon Master, who was rushing over, who was in the spirit severing stage and had the advantage of being in the spirit severing stage, others, including the 8 evil demon masters, who were at the peak of the primordial soul realm and whose combat power was equivalent to the supreme realm experts in the astral realm, could not detect it at all. Therefore, when the flying swords disappeared, all the extraterrestrial demons were at a loss. 8 evils, be careful! Zhaoke Demon Master roared when he saw this. His speed, which was already extremely fast, increased by another level. He naturally sensed that by Ziyue's target was the only Devil King in the 8 evils lair, the 8 evils lords. Ziyue had naturally already recognized the identities of the 8 evil demon kings, and he knew that even though they had yet to truly reach the spirit-severing stage, their combat prowess was already quite formidable. With the arrival of the Zhao Ke Demon Master, an expert who almost had the battle prowess of a demon master was naturally a great threat to him. Therefore, he wanted to get rid of him immediately. Not good. When Ziyue took out his flying sword, the 8 evil demon kings were already on high alert. The moment Zhao Ke's voice arrived, the sense of danger in his heart reached its peak. As he frantically retreated, he once again took out the void teleportation talisman that he had put away and was about to activate it at all costs. Ziyue's previous strike had truly frightened him. He knew very well that the power of that strike was absolutely beyond his imagination. It was not something he could block. However, the speed of Ziyue's flying sword was too fast. In a thousandth of a second, it had already reached the 8 evil demon kings. Therefore, by the time he reacted, it was already too late. The 8 evil demon kings had just taken out the void teleportation talisman, and before they could activate it, Ziyue's flying sword had already pierced through his defensive shield and Dharma treasure. Then, without any delay, it pierced into his body. Whoosh! In an instant, an endless amount of invisible sword chi exploded, instantly tearing his primordial spirit apart and destroying his life force. Then, the 8 evil demon kings' entire body instantly turned into fine powder and disappeared into thin air. Dead. Heaven and earth instantly fell silent. No one dared to believe their eyes. The 8 evil demon kings, who were so powerful and almost on par with a demon master, died just like that. They were instantly killed by the opponent. Even though everyone had guessed that Ziyue was very powerful from his previous attacks, they were still astonished and panicky. In front of such an existence, could they really survive? What's that? Ziyue looked in the direction where the 8 evil demon kings had fallen. To be precise, it was a talisman other than a storage Dharma treasure. He was very clear about the power of his sword. An ordinary Dharma treasure could be easily torn into pieces. Even if he deliberately controlled it and only hurt the 8 evil demon kings and did not touch the treasures on their bodies, the sword chi was enough to destroy any treasures below the golden core level. However, this thin piece of talisman seemed to be extremely tough. On the surface of the talisman, there was a layer of special energy wrapped around it, making it completely unaffected by the surrounding energy waves. Although he was surprised, Ziyue was not satisfied with his actions. In a flash, he had already arrived at the place where the 8 evil demon kings had fallen. He stretched out his hand and took the talisman in his hand. This is a void teleportation talisman. Once activated, it can travel 30,000 miles in an instant. Ziyue was startled, and a hint of surprise appeared on his face. He had only seen records of this kind of treasure in some legendary Taoist scriptures. He knew of its mysterious power, but had never seen it before, let alone possess it. Never would he have imagined that the 8 evil demon kings would possess one. It is said that this void teleportation talisman is a talisman with supreme power. Even in the void seal, one can escape 30,000 miles with the help of this talisman. Another thing worth mentioning is that this void teleportation talisman contains a clear spatial Great Tao rule. It is extremely useful for a cultivator to comprehend the spatial Great Tao. Therefore, instead of using it as an escape treasure, it is better to say that it is a supreme Taoist treasure that assists in cultivation. In the immortal spell world, its value is extremely high and is not inferior to some inferior spiritual treasures. Ziyue was excited and quickly put it away solemnly. On the other hand, Ziyue only glanced at the storage Dharma treasures of the 8 evil demon kings casually and put them away in the Kunwu Golden Pagoda's treasure room. He killed the 8 evil demon kings. Kill him, quickly kill him. Ziyue's appearance seemed to have caused the surrounding extraterrestrial demons to go crazy. Some were frightened, while others could not help but brazenly attack. Originally, Ziyue had been punished by the great Tao will of the extraterrestrial demon world. Imperceptibly, The living beings of this world would become hostile to him. The antagonistic relationship between the star realm and the extraterrestrial demon world had intensified this point. Not to mention, the extraterrestrial demons were often extremely short-sighted and crazy when dealing with matters. They were rarely like the human cultivator or the 8 evil demon kings, who would weigh the pros and cons. When Ziyue approached, the extraterrestrial demons naturally could not help but attack out of fear and anger. "You're courting death," Ziyue snorted coldly. He had not thought of dealing with the extraterrestrial demons in the lair of the 8 evils as soon as possible. He did not expect them to come knocking on his door. He was furious and could not help but reach out. A terrifying giant palm instantly rose and almost covered the entire lair of the 8 evils. Then, the endless river of stars reversed and quickly pressed down. Rumble. Countless attacks landed on Ziyue's palm, but they could not move it at all. On the contrary, when his palm landed, no matter what kind of attack or Dharma treasure it was crushed instantly. Then, it landed on the bodies of the extraterrestrial demons. Some of them put up defensive techniques, some of them tried their best to escape, some of them burrowed into the ground, some of them put others in front of them as a shield, and some of them even forgot to struggle. They merely let out terrified howls. Their expressions varied, but all of them reacted the moment by Ziyue's palm print landed. Chi chi chi. All of them were turned into meat paste and died. "How dare you!" The peacock demon lord's eyes were about to burst as he roared. It was as if he had not expected Ziyue to be so arrogant. When he had already caught up and came to rescue, Yi Shiwen still dared to attack so crazily. Not only did Yi Shiwen kill the 8 evil demon lords, but he also slaughtered the tens of thousands of demon soldiers and demon generals in the lair of the 8 evils. Such a crazy act was truly beyond his imagination. It made him even more furious. "Die, die, die, die. I want you to die." The Sky Sword Demon Master roared furiously and shot forward. Soon, he was within 50 kilometers of Ziyue. Then, without even thinking, a golden streak of light shot towards Ziyue. The moment his attack landed, endless power of the Great Path laws seemed to appear in the world. It was like a shocking giant net that came crashing down, wanting to envelop Ziyue. Is this the power of a severed divinity realm cultivator? Every single one of their movements is imbued with the power of the great Tao of heaven and earth, and when they attack, they are augmented by the power of the great Tao. Their might far surpasses that of a primordial spirit realm cultivator. Ziyue's eyes were calm. Ever since he had broken through to the late-stage primordial spirit realm, he could clearly feel how powerful he was. This made him want to fight to his heart's content. Regardless of whether it was the monolith demon king or the 8 evil demon kings, although they were powerful in the primordial spirit realm, they were nothing to him. He could crush them with a wave of his hand. Therefore, even though this was his first time fighting with a severed divinity realm cultivator, he was still extremely excited and filled with an endless desire to fight. He took a step forward and waved his hand. Chi! A beam of divine light shot out in a grandiose manner. Sizzle, 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 heaven and earth shook. The endless power of the great Tao that had originally shrouded the void was quickly dispersed. The remaining power of the divine light did not diminish. It rushed directly towards the golden streak of light that the Sky Sword Demon Master had shot out. The golden streak of light was actually the Sky Sword Demon Master's weapon. It was a middle-grade demonic treasure called the Soul-Splitting Golden Awl. Not only was it extremely fast, but it was also terrifyingly powerful. Once it landed on the enemy, it would immediately activate the soul-splitting effect of the demonic treasure, which would forcefully tear apart the enemy's primordial spirit. Its power was extremely terrifying. Ziyue's primordial magnet divine light was extremely powerful, but it was naturally far inferior to the attack of the Sky Sword Demon Master's middle-grade demonic treasure. It was easily torn apart. Then, the soul-splitting golden awl did not diminish in power or speed at all. It rushed directly towards Ziyue. Clang! The soul-splitting golden all collided with the Kunwa golden pagoda in front of Ziyue, creating a loud sound. However, it did not even shake the Kunwa golden pagoda. Only 20% of its power passed through the Kunwa golden pagoda and reached Ziyue. Then, it was completely blocked by Ziyue's true dragon black armor technique. However, the Sky Sword Demon Master's attack contained a different kind of power. The terrifying, soul-splitting power was like a small knife that slashed out. It broke through the Kunwa Golden Pagoda and the true Dragon Black Armor technique without any hindrance, and directly slashed towards Ziyue's primordial spirit. Interesting, Ziyue was not afraid at all. He allowed the soul-splitting knife to slash at him. He opened his eyes and was completely unharmed. There was even a hint of a smile on his face. After reaching the mid-stage of the primordial spirit realm, the connection between my primordial spirit, soul, flesh, and blood becomes even stronger. They can even transform and merge into one. My primordial spirit and soul can naturally separate and enter the depths of my flesh and blood particles. The power of my flesh and blood can also completely merge into my primordial spirit and soul to strengthen my origin. Naturally, my defense against primordial spirit attacks has reached an extreme level. Although the Sky Sword Demon Master soul attack is strong and has weakened my life force by 10%, as long as it does not destroy my primordial spirit, flesh, and soul in an instant, it will not be a threat to my life. Ziyue's eyes lit up. As the primordial spirit in his body circulated, the 10% weakened life force was quickly restored. This is only the late stage of the primordial spirit realm. If I break through to the peak of the primordial spirit realm, the three powers will completely merge. I reckon that even a true immortal expert of the spirit severing stage or above would not be a threat to me with a primordial spirit attack. Ziyue was looking forward to it. However, he would not allow the Sky Sword Demon Master to continue attacking. He reached out and waved his hand. The cuffs of his sleeves instantly expanded to form a huge but extremely pure black space. He immediately pulled the Sky Sword Demon Master into it. Then, Ziyue immediately used the Great Forbidden Spirit Art and the 5 Emperor Heaven Sealing Sword Technique. Even his own domain power was suppressed as he tried to seal the Sky Sword Demon Master. However, the Sky Sword Demon Master was indeed a top-notch expert of the middle stage of the spirit-severing stage. His strength was extremely terrifying. With one hand holding up the sky, he instantly broke through Ziyue's many seals. Then he spread his wings and rushed in front of Ziyue in an instant, slashing out with a black light. Ziyue's expression changed. He immediately used the 1,000 miles in an instant and quickly retreated. However, the Sky Sword Demon Master followed him like a shadow. He was even faster than Ziyue when he used the 1,000 miles in an instant. Then, streaks of black light slashed out continuously, almost completely enveloping Ziyue. "You can't escape," the Sky Sword Demon Master roared. He even pecked with the sharp corners of his mouth, causing the void to crack open. Whoosh! All of a sudden, a bolt of lightning struck by Ziyue's body, causing him to falter for a moment. At this moment, the bad luck entanglement was activated. An invisible bolt of lightning struck down on Ziyue's body. If it were any other time, he would not be afraid. The power of this bolt of lightning would not be a threat to him. However, at this crucial moment in the battle, he was finally placed in danger. Time reversal. Ziyue's expression changed. He immediately looked at the stats panel. He immediately reversed time to 1 second ago. Chapter 850. As his strength and realm increased, the strength of the enemies he faced also increased. As a result, the consumption of by Ziyue's time reversal also increased. However, he couldn't care less about this during the battle. Time reversal happened 1 second ago. When he used 1,000 miles in an instant to retreat, he suddenly paused and quickly dodged to the side. Whoosh! It was also at this moment that a bolt of lightning appeared out of nowhere and struck by Ziyue. However, because Ziyue had anticipated it and dodged it in time, the bolt of lightning missed its target. Ziyue didn't hesitate and looked at his attributes panel again. Time acceleration. He immediately used the power of time acceleration. Instantly, a special force condensed and acted on Ziyue's body. Then his speed, the flow of his thoughts, and the circulation of his origin energy in his body all increased greatly. He also vaguely felt that everything around him had become much slower. The trajectory of the lightning, the mystery of the Peacock Demon Master's attack, the direction of its movement, and the ferocious expression on his face due to his anger all seemed to have slowed down countless times. One by one, they appeared in front of his eyes. Seeing this, Ziyue made up his mind. The origin energy under the combination of the three powers instantly boiled. He reached out his hand and took out a long staff. Then, without thinking, he threw it out. Heaven-shocking staff technique. Shadow after shadow of the staff spread out layer by layer, directly covering this part of the world. 72 heaven-shocking staff techniques, 36 heaven-shocking staff techniques, 18 heaven-shocking staff techniques, 9 heaven-shocking staff techniques. In a short period of time, he performed all the heaven-shocking staff techniques. They collided directly with the Peacock Demon Master's attack. Clang, clang, clang. Countless shadows of the staff hit the streaks of black light and made crisp sounds. Bang! Then, Ziyue felt his hand lighten. The streaks of black light were shattered by him. His ghostly shadow also smashed heavily on the eagle beak of the Peacock Demon Master. Bang! 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 The Peacock Demon Master's beak was extremely hard and was one of his famous weapons. In terms of power and hardness, it was comparable to a middle-grade demonic treasure. However, under Ziyue's heaven-shocking staff techniques, its beak couldn't help but bend and crack. Then it broke into pieces. Then, endless demonic blood spurted out from the corner of its mouth. What? How is this possible? The Peacock Demon Master was shocked. He didn't expect Ziyue's attack to be so terrifying. Perhaps he was slightly inferior in terms of the profundities of the Tao, but in terms of absolute power, he was still superior. Although the heaven-startling staff technique is mysterious, its power is also extremely strong when the three forces are combined. However, it wasn't complete after all. It lacked the most exquisite heaven-startling three strikes and heaven-startling single strike. In terms of power, the sword technique, the heart. Ziyue sighed in his heart of the peacock heaven-shocking with his strength. This shocking staff technique was actually comparable to the full-strength attack of an expert at the intermediate stage of the spirit-severing realm. It could even be considered powerful at the intermediate stage of the spirit-severing realm. However, compared to the heart sword technique, Ziyue estimated that if he used the heart sword technique, even if he couldn't reach the late stage of the spirit-severing stage, he would definitely be at the peak of the mid-stage of the spirit-severing stage. He would definitely be able to severely injure the Zhaokei Demon Lord. However, through this battle with the Divine Severing Stage, Intermediate Stage, Sky Sword Devil Master, I finally understood just how powerful I am. Next, it's time to end the battle. Ziyue had searched the souls of the extraterritorial demons many times, so he knew that the Zhaokei Demon Master was at the middle stage of the Spirit Severing Stage. He was probably at the second level of the middle stage of the Spirit Severing Stage. In the entire extraterritorial demon world, he was considered a powerhouse and could be ranked in the top 10. Originally, he was still a little nervous and prepared to escape. However, after the battle, he understood his opponent's level of power. He made up his mind, and a trace of killing intent flashed through his eyes. He hurriedly controlled the flying sword to flash again. In order to be effective, Ziyue even added the power of time acceleration to the flying sword. He had already used all his strength in this attack. He wanted to end the battle as soon as possible. In the extraterritorial demon world, he indeed didn't have much time to waste. Oh no! The Zhaokei Demon Master's expression changed drastically. He could clearly sense that Ziyue's attack was different, especially when Ziyue used time acceleration to add to the flying sword. He couldn't touch that mystery at all. With that kind of speed, he couldn't dodge at all. He could only take it head-on. When he thought of this, his heart trembled. Suddenly, a dark light flashed across his body. This dark light was actually a drop of water. However, under the activation of his power, it quickly turned into layers of scales that covered his entire body. Demonic treasure battle armor. Although it was only an inferior demonic treasure, because it could freely change its shape like a droplet of water, it was called the ghastly water armor. It was extremely valuable, and its defensive power was also very strong. However, this demonic treasure armor didn't make him let down his guard. As he retreated, he even shot out streaks of black light. This black light was one of his offensive techniques. It was very powerful, but when he shot it out, it fused together and formed a compact shield, blocking in front of him. Die! It was also at this moment that Ziyue's flying sword flashed. Under the power of time acceleration, it was as fast as light and slammed hard on the black shield. Under the eruption of the terrifying power, the black shield was instantly shattered. Then, without any reduction in power, it directly landed on the ink treasure battle armor. Chi! In an instant, his armor was shattered and then pierced into his body. His flesh and blood were minced and annihilated. Is he dead? Zua exhaled softly and looked at the void in the distance. Then, he subconsciously looked at his attribute panel, and his expression changed. His spirit power had indeed increased by a lot. Now it had reached 5 billion spirit power. However, that was because he had killed the 8 evil demon kings and destroyed the 8 evil demon lairs. Other than that, there was no new increase in spirit power. In other words, the Zhaokei demon master was not dead. Then, in the next moment, Ziyue saw an illusory but almost solid figure in the depths of the void. It was escaping an extremely fast speed. Yes, the Zhaokei demon master is a spirit-severing stage expert. He can split his primordial spirit and condense a new external avatar. Although I managed to kill one of his main bodies with that strike, he still has a split soul that can escape immediately. Ziyue quickly understood this point. The biggest difference between spirit-severing stage and primordial spirit-severing stage cultivators was that they could condense external avatars, which was equivalent to having 2 lives. Even if one of the external avatars died, it would be difficult to kill the other external avatar as long as it was not some special destiny type, soul type, or nomological method. Fortunately, the Zhaokei demon master had forgotten or was overconfident. He did not think that he would be in danger of dying and brought his external avatar along with him. Instantly, he had placed himself in endless danger. You can't escape. Seeing this, Ziyue's killing intent burned. He shouted and quickly used 1,000 miles in an instant. In order to prevent the external avatar from escaping, he was not stingy with his spirit power and used time acceleration again. Instantly, Ziyue's speed increased by more than 10 times. In the blink of an eye, he rushed in front of the Zhaokei demon master and used the 9 Thunder God-destroying seal. Quick! 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 The Zhaokei demon master's soul body turned pale. He was extremely anxious. He did not think that the cultivator who came from the astral realm would be so powerful. A single sword strike, just a single sword strike, had broken through all of his techniques and even destroyed his body. It should be known that his strength was enough to be ranked in the top 10 in the extraterritorial demon world. He was confident that even if someone was stronger than him, as long as they were not in the late stage of the spirit-severing stage or at the peak of the spirit-severing stage, they would not be a threat to him. In the end, quick run. I have to leave this place as soon as possible, he muttered in his heart. The other demon masters around him flashed across his mind. He wanted to rush there immediately to seek protection. He even sent out a call for help. However, even if his speed was shocking, under the effect of his soul body, his speed was more than 30% faster than his original body. However, under the effect of time acceleration, Ziyue was really fast. He was much faster than the Zhaokei demon master. In just an instant, he had caught up with him and used a thunder seal. Kaboom! It quickly imprinted on the Zhaokei demon master. A blood-curdling scream was heard. The Zhaokei demon lord didn't even have time to react. His soul fragment stopped moving and shattered from the inside out. Like fine threads of light, it dissipated into the air. The Zhaokei demon master had died. His soul body also dissipated and turned into nothingness. Between heaven and earth, only a water droplet and a stone seal were left in the void. That water droplet was a low-grade, defensive demon treasure, the ghastly water armor. As for the stone seal, it was a grotto heaven treasure that belonged to him, the Zhaokei seal. It contained countless treasures and wealth that he had obtained in his life. In the end, with his death, it was no longer with him and turned into Ziyue's spoils of war. Ziyue did not care. He kept them one after another and then looked at the attribute panel. The number of spirit energy has reached more than 2 billion. Ziyue was overjoyed. One Zhaokei demon master had increased his spirit energy by more than 500 million. It was indeed exciting. Let's continue. Although 2 billion spirit energy is not a small amount, it is not enough to satisfy me. Powerful strength gave Ziyue endless confidence. In addition, he felt that he could only obtain so much spirit energy in the extraterritorial demon world. Naturally, he wanted to obtain as much spirit energy as possible to increase his strength. However, 2 billion spirit energy is enough for me to complete the heaven-startling 3 strikes of the heaven-startling staff technique. Ziyue thought of the power of the heaven-startling staff technique. Although the heaven-startling 9 strikes of the heaven-startling staff technique was not as powerful as the Supreme Dharma Heart Sword technique, it was not far behind. It was a secret technique of the same level. However, because swordsmanship was the main cultivation technique, the staff technique was relatively weaker in terms of lethality. Naturally, it was not as powerful as the Heart Sword technique. However, the heaven-startling 3 strikes of the heaven-startling staff technique was completely different. It was a more powerful and exquisite staff technique than the heaven-startling 9 strikes of the heaven-startling staff technique. If it was supported by the previous staff techniques, its power would definitely reach an unimaginable level. It would be enough to surpass the Heart Sword technique. Naturally, it would also allow Ziyue's strength to soar again. In addition, Ziyue had obtained too much spirit energy in a short period of time. It was relatively easy for him. Therefore, he did not hesitate too much. His gaze fell on the attribute panel. Do you want to consume one? 28 billion spirit energy to complete the 5th move of the heaven-startling staff technique. The heaven-startling 3 strikes of the heaven-startling staff technique. Consume. Ziyue directly chose to consume. In an instant, Ziyue's mind relaxed. Immediately, he felt that a set of complicated and mysterious staff techniques filled with the charm of the great Tao appeared in his mind. This staff technique seemed to be ever-changing, but in the end, there were only 3 strikes. 1 strike to break the sky, 1 strike to shatter the earth, and 1 strike to break the universe. It was filled with the domineering aura of fighting the heavens and the earth. The heaven-startling 3 strikes. Is this the true mystery of the heaven-startling 3 strikes? Compared to it, the Heart Sword technique, the 9 lightning god-destroying seal, and even the great Tao convergence technique that I created are nothing. This is a shocking secret technique that truly surpasses the level of Tao techniques. It belongs to the spirit-severing stage powerhouses, or even the top spirit-severing stage powerhouses, who can create it. Ziyue was shocked and immersed in it. In a daze, he actually felt that his understanding of the great Tao of heaven and earth, the mysteries of heaven and earth, and the infinite rules of the universe were constantly soaring. In an instant, his appearance did not seem to have changed at all. However, his mind seemed to be in sync with heaven and earth, and he could see a trace of the wonders of the operation of heaven and earth. 10,000 years in a glance was nothing more than this. I still have more than 700 million spirit energy. Let's find a place to accumulate spirit energy first. I'll completely master this heaven-startling 3 strikes in one go. Ziyue took a while to regain his clarity. His figure flashed. He directly used 1,000 miles in an instant. Soon, he arrived in another demon's den. Without wasting any time, he rushed out with a sword and broke the demon's den's formation. With a palm strike, he killed countless otherworldly demons. His spirit energy skyrocketed. 3 billion spirit energy, Ziyue muttered. Then, he impatiently poured his spirit energy into the heaven-startling 3 strikes. After consuming 28 billion spirit energy, the heaven-startling 3 strikes can be upgraded from the beginner level to the perfected level. Upgrade. Ziyue directly chose to upgrade. Instantly, countless profundities related to the heaven-shocking 3 staff strikes, the method of execution, and the various methods to utilize it all gushed into by Ziyue's mind. He seemed to have gone through countless years of diligent and tireless cultivation as he directly raised this staff technique to the perfection realm. The heaven-startling 3 strikes has reached the perfected level. I'm sure my strength is also much stronger than his, by a large margin. If it was before with the heart sword technique, I could erupt with strength comparable to the first level of the middle stage of the spirit severing stage. Then, at this time with this heaven-startling 3 strikes, my strength will definitely be higher and I will truly step into the late stage of the spirit severing stage. Ziyue silently compared and quickly came to a realization. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.